The people you meet are going to be the most important thing in your life. The reason I got into networking and relationships was because I thought, if I can learn how to bring in clients, they'll never fire me from this gig. Connecting people to each other builds social capital. It's a muscle. The more you use it, the better those connections are. When you cultivate who's around you, you're cultivating who you are. I started my original podcast in my friend's basement during law school. I had no help with Art of Charm. Yes, I was working with other people. They were not at all interested in the show. They were interested in picking up girls and making money. And for me, that started to get a little sad pretty quick. I just couldn't be the pickup guy anymore. It was just killing me. I hated it. I'm married. I'm gonna start a family soon. Like, I don't want that. I wanted to interview great people. I didn't want to be stuck with this pickup brand, and I had to rebuild it. Welcome to the Jordan Harbinger Show. And I had a lot of great help from my network. That was why we were able to go from 0 to 4.5 million downloads a month in 8-10 months. The relationships that I had, this is the best insurance policy that you can have, and you can't buy it.
They say that the human race is doomed, that we have lost touch with our true nature, that the media has corrupted us, and that the planet has no future. I disagree. I believe that humanity is full of hope, and that our salvation lies within each one of us. My name is Brian Rose, and my job is to listen, the oldest method of learning known to man. Each week I seek out individuals that are changing the world, people who are living and thinking in a different way. Their stories will challenge your beliefs, make you question your choices, and perhaps inspire you to change. I never planned on doing any of this, but now I can't stop. Join me on this mission and make humanity something we can all be proud of. I first met Jordan Harbinger 7 years ago when I was out in Los Angeles about to go on the Joe Rogan Experience. London Real had just started, and Jordan was hosting the Art of Charm podcast, which he did for, say, 9 years, and interviewed some of the most amazing people around the world. So I was so excited to sit down with him again and find out what he's been up to in his brand new show. Jordan's actually a master networker, and not in that kind of a sleazy way where you go to a party and pass out as many business cards as possible. Jordan does it in an organic way, where he's constantly checking in with people, investing, and connecting people together to where he builds goodwill that ends up paying him back massively. So if you want to learn how to network and that entire art, this episode with you, a lot of amazing actionable information that I'm actually using myself. And inside London Real, we've been doing some other things, and that is teaching students from around the world how to create things, whether it's a business, a podcast, a TED Talk, or better lifestyles. We are the best in the world when it comes to accountability programs, getting you to do those hard and uncomfortable things to have massive 10x success in life. And here's a bit more about what we do inside. London Real doesn't stop when the conversation ends. You see, that's when we get started. Because everything begins with a thought, and then comes the action. The London Real Academy is our global transformation platform. Here we bring together thousands of students from over 75 countries. Whether you want to build a profitable business from your passion, or learn to speak to inspire, or broadcast yourself with your very own podcast, or accelerate your life to become a high-performance person, we have the online accountability course and personal mentoring program that will make your dream a reality. Join us, and we'll take your life to the next level together. Our next accelerator course is starting soon. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Jordan Harbinger, the award-winning broadcaster, entrepreneur, and networking expert. In 2006, you launched the Art of Charm podcast after leaving your career as a Wall Street lawyer. The show quickly became a pioneer in the space and regularly topped the iTunes charts for 12 years. Your new venture, The Jordan Harbinger Show, distills untapped wisdom from the world's top performers and has been an instant success with over 4 million downloads a month and was named by Apple as one of the best podcasts of 2018. You're also one of the top experts in the art of networking, with Forbes magazine naming you as one of the 50 best relationship builders on the planet. Jordan, welcome back to London Real.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, it's great to be here. 6 years ago, we were in a hotel room in Venice Beach. Wait for it, folks. Taping a show because I was out there to be on the Joe Rogan Experience, and that's when we first met. Wow, it's been quite a...
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And my wife asked me, how do you know Brian? And I thought, sometime in another lifetime, two or three lifetimes ago, we were sitting in that hotel with your little Zoom recorder or whatever. I don't even know if you even had anything. It was nothing like this.
Yeah. It wasn't. It was just webcams and Zoom recorders, and we were a year into the show.
Yeah.
And you were kind of a pioneer in the space. You know, you were one of the few podcasts I knew about, and I think some of our first few guests maybe were in the pickup space, and I knew of it.
Oh yeah.
And you know, there weren't a lot of podcasts back then.
No.
You know, there was Rogan, and so when I knew we were going out, I was like, let's have you on the show, and then you were there, and it was just a weird moment for all of us.
Yeah, we did it in a hotel room, and I was wearing probably the exact same thing I'm wearing right now, except I was younger and prettier back then.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
And then 6 years later, you've talked to incredible people. I mean, you know, you've had amazing names on the show, from generals to Charlemagne the God and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now you've got your new venture. What have you seen over the last 12 years of this medium? You know, this rebirth of radio that you kind of stumbled onto, you know?
Yeah, well, it's been interesting because, of course, I pay attention to London Real, and I remember at first looking at a lot of what you were doing and what I was doing and thinking like, okay, we're doing similar stuff, but it's different enough that we have a lot of overlap in our show's fans. And whenever I ask people what they like about both shows, they usually list the same qualities, which is we actually prepare for the interviews, take the time to do in-depth conversations. It's all about the listener or the viewer instead of about trying to make ourselves look great. And what I noticed was that tends to be really rare among conversations, among interviewers, among people in media, because, and I'm sure you've seen this, the trend is get more influence by getting more likes on your crap, right? And I say crap because that's what most people are producing. They're not thinking about those people who are watching us. They're not thinking about what are people going to learn from the conversation. They're just thinking, I got to look great. I got to make sure that I hold up my sponsor's bottle of Viagra juice or whatever the heck it is, and then try to rinse and repeat until you can show that you're some sort of force on the space. And by sticking true to what you and I have been doing for a really long time, what I've seen is that, thank goodness, that actually tends to win out, because the quality of the conversation is pretty much one of the only things that allow shows like London Real to float to the top. Because right now, I think the stats showed something like there's 500,000 to 600,000 podcasts. I don't even know how many YouTube channels there are. Millions probably. Yeah. And with interviews, just add those with podcasts, you've got a lot of choice out there. So to hone the craft, to actually spend the time getting good at what you've gotten good at over the last 10, 12 years that we've been doing this, that's what's rare. Not the ability to turn the camera on. As cool as this set is, that's not what sets you apart necessarily. It's the fact that you actually care about what you're doing because you care about what these people are experiencing. And so I've seen a downward trend in people doing that, which actually makes it easier for guys like you and I to stand out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and a downward trend because people are thinking about that clickbait, that shock thing, then putting someone on the spot,
right,
so they can get that immediate pop and kind of be Instagram famous.
Sure.
as opposed to providing value and going for this long-term play.
Yeah, yeah. I always say on the show, you have to advocate for the audience. You know, I used to be an attorney. If there's one thing I learned in law school, and there probably is only one thing that I learned back then, it's that you have to advocate for your client. And for guys like you and I, these people watching us, those are our clients. These are our customers, if you will. So we have to advocate for them. Every minute of their time has to be earned with quality, not just like, oh, let me trigger some group of people and then jump down Jordan Peterson's throat and trick him into saying something that gets excerpted and put on other channels so that we get more flow into the channel. It's harder to build an audience of intelligent people that come to you for what you're doing. There's a huge number of people tuning in to this right now, not knowing who I am, not even caring, just going, well, if it's on London Real, it's probably gonna be worth my time. That's tough. It's easier to go, hey, look at this guy who has a temper tantrum on this random YouTube show. Click, subscribe, see if it happens again, never watch another video. That's why you get these channels or these people that are influencers and they've got like 1 million people and then 25 likes on their stuff because nobody cares. They haven't built the ability, they might have built a following in the app or in the space, but they haven't built a tribe of people that actually care. That's what's hard.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at the space, you know, over even the last 5 years, I mean, do you see it changing? Because you still love the audio format. And
yeah.
I know you've got stuff on video and you do the video interviews, you got your YouTube channel, but you know, it's weird that like an old technology is still such a presence. I know the US still probably consumes more podcasts than anybody, a driving culture, all that stuff, but you're still a big fan of betting on audio, right?
I bet on audio, and here, there's a couple reasons. One, yes, it's increasing. Podcasting is, I mean, all of us in that space have been waiting for the last 10, 12 years for it to pop off, right? But we saw with radio, it was supposed to get killed by TV. Didn't happen. Radio was supposed to get killed by the internet and everything else. Didn't happen. TV is getting killed. Radio still holding strong. Audio in general still holding strong. I do like the video format, but as you and I were talking about earlier, getting people to get into this physical space is tough. Like, you're in a way beholden to whoever shows up in the city and then trying to get them to do this, whereas I can show up and go to their house and do this, and it's harder for them to say no. So that's been a huge advantage. The other thing is, I would love to do more video, and I will be for sure, and cop a little bit of your style here with the excellent setup. And it's just a lot tougher to produce the amount of the quantity of high quality content. I know you guys can knock these things out like crazy, but I see the work that goes into it. I mean, somebody picked me up, there were people waiting outside. I get up here, there's 20 people in here taking B-roll photos. There's people on their machines editing in real time. There's a whole control booth of people out here doing this. If I had to, I could show up with my backpack full of stuff and do the show. Yeah, you don't get the video experience though. I like what you're doing here. I wish that this was all something I could fit into one backpack. It's not happening yet, but it will eventually happen where you'll be able to do this and you'll have one person with you or two. Yeah. And you'll be able to do the same thing.
It's interesting how you and I both went on this kind of journey of kind of exploration and knowledge, but we just came up with two completely different products, you know? And like from the very get-go, I was on video, probably because I was fascinated with video when I was a kid and I'd gone to like a part-time film school here, and then I was already on YouTube. It seemed like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I went on this one quest and you went on another one. You know, how did you change? Because again, Art of Charm started, you guys were providing value to this, you know, group of men out there that didn't know exactly what to do when it came to this certain area of their life, but you morphed it soon into a show that was talking to everybody and searching out knowledge. I mean, was that your adventure, your journey?
It was. I mean, look, part of it was I didn't have any way to produce video. Cameras and stuff were totally foreign to me. I had no help with Art of Charm, none. Yes, I was working with other people. They were not at all interested in the show. They were interested in picking up girls and making money. And for me, that started to get a little sad, a lot sad, pretty quick. It became a problem that I kind of solved, and I went, oh, okay, I don't have to lie to women to get them to like me. And then that was kind of the edge of my interest for this. And I wanted to help other guys make themselves better so that they actually deserved what they wanted. But that whole pickup scene just devolved into a bunch of lying scumbags who were kind of like angry at life and turned angry at women, and I didn't want any part of that.
Okay.
And it got really lucrative, which made it hard to leave. even though we were teaching white hat stuff, which was like, look, you can be the good guy. You don't have to be this scumbaggy make up stories about your imaginary Ferrari guy. But then after a while, you kind of became, I should say, we kind of became like the good drug dealer, where you tell people what you do and you're like, but it's not like that. And it got tiring doing that. And so I decided that I was going to evolve the show. That worked up to a point until my former business partners were just like, look, we're making money doing it this way. We don't really care what you want. And that was only a matter of time until that string broke. So in a way, I really wish that I had been able to do something like what you're doing here with London Real earlier. I think with the Jordan Harbinger show where I am now, I'm able to do a wider variety of interviews with this similarly interesting people and talk about subjects that are of interest to me and I'm not then trying to grasp at straws and be like, and this relates to your dating life in this totally tangential and awkward way because I have to sell this product.
Right. So product placement was tricky on The Art of Charm.
Yeah.
But the content was always kind of you talking to high performance people and distilling.
100%. Yeah.
So the content itself isn't necessarily changing, but now your product is congruent with who you are.
Right.
And everything.
And I strongly advise people to look at this, not just as this thing that this podcaster guy did. You and I have a similar story in that we were working on this financial corporate BS, and which was incongruent with what we wanted, and it killed us a little bit, right? Or a lot, or almost literally killed us in certain ways. You and I both have probably some similar close calls when it comes to this. And there are people right now that are going to be listening or watching this, and I strongly encourage you to look at what you're doing now and the rationalizations that you make in your head that say, well, I'm only going to do this for a few years. You know, when I was an attorney on Wall Street, I remember going, I'm going to do this for 2 to 4 years, and then I'm going to do what I really want to do, whatever that might be. I have no idea what that is. That is dangerous. That will kill you slowly, and you won't see it coming. Like if right now we picked up some kid who was in film school and said, look, that's not going to happen for you for a while. You need to work at Taco Bell. He'd punch us in the face, and rightfully so, right? Or, hey, look, I know you want to be an accountant. You should do this other horrible, horrible thing that you hate, but you're only going to have to do it for 4 years. He'd scream in your face. He would run away from you. But us, we slowly boil ourselves. These, you know, the boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
I was more than willing to go, Wall Street is killing me, but 4 years, make some money, pay off my student loans, which, by the way, I got, so I was qualified for that job that I hated, and then just do this slowly. That will kill you. It's not because you're not fulfilling your purpose. It's not because of your lack of meaning, or I should say, it's not just because of your lack of meaning. It's because when you're doing that, you think you're figuring out things that you want later, but it's getting further and further away from you. And then you start doing things like golden handcuffs, where you're buying things to make yourself happy. And then by the time you think you're ready to leave, or by the time you just can't take it anymore, you already bought a house, a car, a freaking boat or something, and you can't leave unless you make that similar standard of living. And my inbox, where I answer all these listener questions, is full of people going, well, I can't downgrade my lifestyle by leaving my corporate job and starting my shiny dog manufacturing business. I can't do that. That's a problem, because that debt, those golden handcuffs, that limits your freedom. And then suddenly you wake up and you're 35 and you've got a family, and you would be irresponsible to start doing something that you love doing without being able to support them. So right now is kind of the best time, whatever time in your life this is the best time to cut those ties and start to do what you need and want to do. Because it's not going to get easier as those tentacles grow around you. As those vines grow around you.
It's almost like having like an addictive, substance in you.
Yes.
You can't walk away from it. And it's one thing about the Taco Bell job, the guy would punch you in the face if he was in film school, but if you say you're going to be a lawyer or a banker, you can say that to your mom and your friends, and they're that has cachet.
Yeah.
And that does play a part of how we interact with this culture and our own self-esteem, and that can be an even better lie. And once you're in the inside of a law firm, you realize that it's okay. There's some work there, and there's some interesting things there, but it's also, a boiler room.
Yeah.
And it's like a
sweatshop.
A sweatshop.
Yeah.
And again, people think this is crazy, but I know guys in banking that are like, Brian, I can't leave, and they're making millions of pounds a year, and they can't leave because they would go broke. They got the houses, the cars, 2 ex-wives, kids in private school, and they look at me and they're like, I could never do what you do. And this is good advice from you. Look at your life and don't do this short-term thing because it will kill you. And again, my latest movie, Iron Mind, I mean, 9 years in banking, I was slowly grinding myself into an alcoholic, depression, a life where I didn't really have any contact with anybody, and I was just not happy. But I told myself I was happy because look, I'm making the money, I'm going on the vacations, and I actually convinced myself I was happy.
Well, there's nothing really wrong with that on its face, right? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you rationalized this process, but you had a lot of help, right? There's no shortage of people that are going to look at a successful lawyer or investment banker and go, well, you're doing the right thing. You're not supposed to love what you do. And in many cases, that's fine. It's fine to not love every second of your job as long as you find purpose or meaning elsewhere. But it is bad news for you if you really hate it. You're looking forward to that first drink of the day every single day. And whether that comes at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., sort of depends on how many years you've been in the game, right? That's the problem. So there are plenty of people that are watching this that are like, I love being a banker. It's great. I love what I'm doing. I always, in fact, envied those people a little bit. You ever get that boss who's like, they're just geeking out on derivative finance and you're going, this guy loves this stuff and is printing money. I would love to be that guy. But for me, I'm just thinking, how much longer do I have to sit here and listen to this person talk before I can go do life? And I'm in that office for 7 days a week. So what it is it's not just quit your job or figure out what you're going to do, what you got to live your purpose. I don't believe in any of that. I really don't. I think you can find purpose and meaning, which are two different things, in pretty much anything that you're doing. What you should fight is the rationalization that says, well, I'm just going to do this for a little while even though I don't like it. Or I don't hate everything about this, so let me focus on what I do love, and maybe one day I'll find a way out of this. That hope is not a strategy at all.
Interesting. Okay, that's good advice. I want to talk at some point about how you stumbled on this concept of networking and how you hacked your way into this space, because you did it out of necessity, really, and I think you got the first insight at the law firm and how you survived in there, and that's great stuff. But before we jump in there, I was just wondering, what kind of knowledge can you drop on us after 12 years of talking long-form conversations with some of the, most successful or most famous or infamous humans in the world? Like, it rubs off on me, I know, but like, what have you learned? Because we're both probably in the best seat in the house, right? We're getting our PhD in, I don't know what it is, the humanity, the world, life. What have you learned?
Well, it's great to have that front row seat, right? Imagine being able to sit down with your favorite author and be like, so here's a question I had about this. Give me an hour of questions that you basically have to answer because you're streaming live to hundreds of thousands of people and it's gonna look terrible if you don't indulge me in this thread, right? I love that about the job. What I've found through interviews is that the clarity of thinking in people who really have created something special is really just next level. And what I mean by that is, you don't generally find even ultra creative artsy fartsy types. Like, I interviewed Nadia Tolokonnikova from Pussy Riot.
Okay, yeah.
And people think like, oh, okay, so she gets up somewhere and does some sort of dirty thing in a church in a face mask, whatever. The level of thinking that goes into this, the clarity of thinking, these are people that, whether they've written a book about astronomy or quantum physics or have been to a Russian prison for political speech, the amount of thought that goes into what they're doing and the amount of research that goes into changing their own or other people's behavior is so much more than what it looks like from the outside. Like, you and I have met plenty of our friends who are writing books or things like that, but you see these authors that are writing, let's say, a business book because they want to get speaking gigs and that's their career. The level of research is kind of like, let me read 20 business books, take some of the best stuff, write some of it in my own words, now I got a book. When you see truly original creators, when you see truly visionary game changers, when you see truly gifted educators or artists, they have done 100 times more work. And it's not just work ethic, it's the passion for what they do, and it's the amount that, it's almost like a compulsive level of creative thinking that never shuts off. And when I meet people like Nadia from Pussy Riot, I just think, you probably never sleep. Where like every fiber of your being is being geared towards this type of creation or your next piece of work. And that to me is truly impressive. And being around that is energizing. And I think not only are we lucky to be in that space with those people, but we can create that space for other people as well. Like your team here, they're not here because, well, maybe they are, maybe you're just super generous with your paychecks. Something tells me that that's not the only reason those guys and gals are here. They're here because they're almost as obsessed with getting knowledge out of people's brains as you are. And that is something that can inspire your workforce. It's something that keeps you awake at night in a good way. And it's something that keeps you actually living for your life instead of just living for your paycheck or living for your next dose of substance that's keeping you numbed up enough to go back into the office.
Yeah.
And so that for me has been, inspiring is a trite word that I hate. Motivating is also a trite word that I hate, but maybe there's a word for those two things put together. There's something special about being around that kind of energy that gives you the ability to kind of pass that on to other people that are around you. And that I think makes for a good leader, but that I also think makes for, that's why your show is good, man. You know, that's why people come back to London Real for, what's it been, 8 years or 7 years y'all have been around, something like that? I've been around for 12 years. That's why people keep listening. It's not just because we get more famous celebrities. Like that shit has become commoditized. You just, if it's about the connections, if it's about who you rope in, there are plenty of podcasts, there are plenty of YouTube channels that just get some other reality TV star and say, whoa, that's really inspiring, bro. That shit is a commodity. I don't know if I'm allowed to say stuff like that on your program.
You can.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that's a commodity, just having them on, but you're saying really getting into and finding out what their obsession is and what they're all about and tapping into that energy.
And you can't fake that. You can't fake that. You see guys trying to fake that in their shows on YouTube or on a podcast, and it's really obvious because their reply to everything is, wow, inspiring or amazing, because they don't have anything to contribute. They're just sitting there. They're just sitting there and they're just on the camera. They don't actually need to be there. The other person's doing all the work. You know, this is a real conversation. And you can't have this kind of conversation if you're just experienced at faking it. If you want to see somebody who's really good at faking it, watch a journalism, TV show where they go, so, why did you start your program? Oh, wow, that must be so interesting. How inspiring. Up next, this guy has 3 dogs and they all have weird haircuts. Thanks for coming in. Right. That's why you can tell what's different. And that's why journalism, or one reason why journalism itself tends to die, because you have half of them looking for clickbait and the other half just wants to get through the day. You know, guys like you and I, we have the luxury, having created that around ourselves, I'd like to think, with our teams, of being able to do something real. No pun intended with the name of the show, but now it seems to fit together pretty nicely.
Yeah, and when you have someone like I have in the studio and it's like 6 cameras and it's uncut, I think you really can capture the essence of that person.
Yeah.
And like I've had 1 or 2 guests that have like honestly died before they were able to come on the show. We had like Kimbo Slice booked and he died.
Literally died
2
before.
days
Oh my
before,
God, that's terrible.
And I always felt like I missed a chance to encapsulate his personality over 90 minutes in like high definition, multi-camera, to where I believe his grandchildren would be like, that's what Grandpa was like. Mm-hmm. You could see his passion, you could see his energy, and I totally agree. When you get people at that top level, they exude it. Like, and again, they probably mention 10% of what they really know, and they're just next level. And I've found that even when I'm on my own media bias, like, oh, look at that person, they got 1 million Twitter followers, they're just an idiot, they're a pop singer. But, let me take a chance and have them on. When they sit in the chair, I'm usually like, wow, they're a lot more. Just like that Pussy Riot analogy. You might think, oh, they just got up into church and said some foul things, anyone can do that. It's like, well, actually, let's look behind it a bit more. There was a lot that went into that, a lot of thought, pushing through difficulty, perseverance, negativity. Everyone's got a crazy story.
It's funny because I asked my friend Jason Flom, who's a record executive, I said, what's some music that you just hate that has been popular, or something that you missed that you just don't like and you don't understand? And I hope I'm allowed to repeat this, but here goes. He said, Collective Soul, I hate it. And I was like, me too, I can't stand them. They were overplayed. They just ruined my childhood, right? But if you think about what those guys did, they hit this chord that resonated with so many people that it became a cliche that became annoying as hell to hear every single time it came on the radio. There is an immense amount of talent and hard work that goes into finding that little crack that gets into my brain and makes me want to run myself through that wall, but resonates so well with so many people. That takes kind of once in a decade levels of talent, hard work, perseverance, practice, rehearsal, and all of that coming together. So whenever I hear something or see something that I just can't stand, I always have to sort of pause and ask myself, is it because I feel like they're getting credit that they don't deserve, or is it just because they've nailed something and it doesn't resonate with me, but it drives me crazy that everyone else loves it? Because if it's the latter, there's something to be learned from that type of artist or that type of creator, even if I just can't stand what they stand for. And I always recommend, like, if you think of somebody who triggers you politically, if that's something that you have, always look at why you are having an emotional reaction. And that goes, whether it's a creator or whether it's just some feeling you're having. This is maybe more self-helpy than I'd like to get on any show, but anything that gets you a strong emotional reaction, especially if it's negative, really spend a lot of time thinking about why. Because there tends to be some gold there for your own growth.
Reflecting back to you, what a part of you that sees that and doesn't like that part of yourself?
Yeah.
Is it always that?
Yeah, it's not always that. I know somebody like Tony Robbins would be like, oh, there's something in you. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock or credence in a lot of self-help stuff. But I think anytime you have a super strong emotional reaction, it tends to either reflect something in you that you don't like, or it reflects something on you that you believe strongly for some reason. Maybe you don't even know the reason. But I bet if you find something that you think is unfair, you find that you have a strong sense of justice, figuring out why can lead you to deeper meaning in any work that you're doing. And that, I think, for me, was one of the reasons why I left law and Wall Street so early, was because I started my original podcast, which now became the Jordan Harbinger Show, in my friend's basement during law school. So I wasn't ever really lost. Maybe I was when I applied to law school in the first place, but I wasn't lost. I had found something while there that I was really passionate about. It just never occurred to me that you could actually do something you loved for your career, because I didn't grow up with that. I don't think anybody in our generation grew up with that. My dad was an auto worker. My mom was a school teacher in a public school. They weren't like, follow your dreams, which is, by the way, terrible advice, but they weren't even thinking you should love what you do. That's a foreign language to people that grew up in Detroit, Michigan in the 80s.
Why is follow your dreams terrible advice?
It's terrible advice because here's the thing. If you're hearing that advice from, let's say, I don't think Mark Cuban said this, but let's attribute this to him for pretend right now. Let's say you hear it from him. How many people have a microphone, have 300,000 people listening or watching what we're doing right now, and are saying this? Okay, great. Is that why they are in the place where they are? Probably not, but it sounds really good during their commencement speech or whatever they got hired to do, right? But what's not going to sound good is, well, what you need to do is have a really great product idea, really lean into it. You know, you're gonna have to finagle some relationships to get funding for this. You're gonna have to sleep on the floor of your clothing shop and da-da-da. That's a really long, kind of boring thing that none of these kids who are waiting to throw their hat up in the air want to hear. The problem is it's selection bias in a lot, or survivor bias, actually, even better. The people that follow their dreams straight into their mom's basement, they don't have a microphone, a YouTube channel, any kind of Twitter following, Instagram following that they can point to that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, right? They failed at that. They are struggling through that, and then they're blaming themselves. Why didn't this work for me? I followed my passion. I don't understand what's going on. Oh, never give up. No, you should give up at a certain point. If you are not doing well and it is failing, maybe your idea sucks. Maybe your execution stinks. Maybe you don't have either the work ethic, the talent, the team around you to execute on this. Maybe you should give up and pivot or do something else. Maybe you shouldn't follow your dreams. Maybe your dream is a better hobby than a career. That advice is not PC, so it doesn't sound great. If you post that in a meme on Instagram, it's not going to get a lot of likes. Give up. It's probably a shitty idea. That's not going to get you a ton of likes. Not many people are going to retweet that, right? It's not going to get you a great following. It's going to be more like a curmudgeonly thing that one of the meme accounts is going to post. But in the end of the day, sometimes you have people that say, hey, should I pursue this idea? I have no education, no experience, I don't have the team around me to do it, but it's my dream. My answer often is, no, you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should be someone's assistant for 5 years so that you can find out how high performers actually live, work, and play. Maybe you should go get coffee for somebody and sit in on meetings and take notes for 3 years. Maybe that's a better play than trying to launch your own clothing line because it's your dream, right? But that's not sexy. And what sells right now on the internet is crap that makes people feel good short term because that's what people want short term. They want that dopamine hit. If you tell people that you were a heroin addict and that you hated your career, they're like, oh man, that sucks. That would never happen to me. And then they go on Instagram and they go, oh, I love this meme. I'm gonna heart that, I'm gonna bookmark it. And then when I feel down, I'm gonna scroll through my bookmarks of memes that I like. It's the same thing. Their habit is cheaper. It may not kill them, but it will kill the chances of them being successful in the long run because they're just looking at short-term crap that makes them feel good. Oh man, I'm not making any money. But look, this person, they're making millions of dollars selling this stuff online and everyone likes their crap on Instagram. I want to be them. That aspirational stuff is garbage. It is a trap. So if you are listening to this, watching this right now, and you're following somebody online that makes you feel good short term, and then you start to think about why you can't do what they're doing, start to examine whether or not you've just fallen into a trap. Because I think a lot of us, and this happens to the best of us, I still have days where I go, man, this person is effortlessly succeeding. Wait a minute, I gotta stop myself and call a friend and say, do you know this person? And there's no better antidote to that than a show like London Real or shows that we create to find out what really goes on in that person's life. And you'll find the person who's sitting on a beach enjoying their life and has made $1 million selling hair extensions has had some shit happen that has been terrible and that they have a 10-year path to where they got now that isn't sexy enough to talk about. But follow your dream sounds really good in the moment. You can't focus on that tip of the spear, that sort of bit that they're showcasing on social media. You have to get the whole story or you're just gonna hate yourself. You're gonna think you're doing things wrong when really maybe you're doing everything right. But that's the long answer to why follow your dreams is bad advice, because it's not advice. It's actually not actionable at all. Follow it how, right? Maybe you need to back up and get the skills first. Don't just go for it. Go for it is a bad strategy. What if that was a battle plan? Just go for it, man. You'll be fine. I don't think so.
How come no one's talking about this dangerous addiction that is not only Instagram, okay, but following these influencers that sell you the dream and then the hustle? You know, you've been in this game long enough to see this coming up the last 3 or 4 years to where everyone's doing it, and some are more obvious than others, but I mean, you're calling it out for what it is. Right there is your own little mini addiction, and even though it won't kill you, it can be more damaging than the heroin and the drugs and the alcohol. No one's talking about that.
The reason no one's talking about it is because right now there's a certain percentage of people that are going, this guy's just a negative a-hole. Like, I don't like this guy. I'm not going to follow the Jordan Harbinger show. Look at this curmudgeon. He's basically an old cranky guy in a young-ish man's body, right? Like, I don't care for this guy's wisdom. I don't feel good about this person's advice. And I don't, by the way, I'm not always such a naysayer. I'm, in fact, one of the more positive people I think that you can find. I'm just very realistic in that I won't lie to someone to make them feel good because I want to give people things that they can use. The reason other people aren't talking about this is imagine somebody posts a meme and says, you can do it, your success is right around the corner. People who are in need of that dopamine hit because their life isn't going as well as they want, or they're not making a living and their parents just said, get a damn job, you can't sit in my basement for another year, it's 2019, get off social media, it's never gonna happen for you. They need someone who's gonna tell them that, screw the haters, the naysayers, they don't get you. They get you, they see you more clearly than you see yourself. Not the guy on the internet who's being a dick. Those people around you that are telling you need to back up and be more realistic, they get you, they're trying to protect you. People who are telling you things like that often are doing it because they see that as in your best interest. It doesn't mean that you should quit what you're doing. It means that maybe you need to slow down and back up and get some skills or get something else in place. the reason it's not popular to talk about is it doesn't make people feel good in the moment, which doesn't generate likes, which doesn't generate retweets. And often it's harder to explain than putting it in one sentence or 140 characters. So it's less popular to talk about this. You and I are in a position of luxury in many ways where I've got 90 minutes to explain this on an episode of the Jordan Harbinger Show. You've got an hour, hour and a half to sit here. We can flesh this out. And people who are watching this and consuming this will respect your wisdom. Your reputation is good enough that they'll sit through this, right? But I guarantee you there's people that already turned this off and they were like, I don't feel good when this person talks, so I'm out. They would rather hear someone else say the buzzwords, right? Hustle, you gotta scale, you gotta grow, you gotta da-da-da, you gotta make sure that they'd rather hear that and go, yeah, that jibes with all this other stuff I've been seeing online. They'd rather nod their heads, and those are the same people that get sort of fractionalized, and they'll look at their left wing or their right wing stuff, and they don't consume anything. They don't read the book. They read the back of the book and they go, yeah, I already know this. Or they watch one interviewer that only has other people complaining about kids these days. They'll watch that. Or they'll watch the one viewer that says, well, the president is this way and everybody who believes this other stuff is dumb, but you're smart because you watch this show, right? That stuff feels good and it generates a tribe. The problem is you don't need to generate a tribe. You need to build something. That's so much harder. So it's easier just to say, come join my tribe. I'll do all the hard work for you. I'll tell you how right you are about everything. That's easier. But the problem is that's the trap. You spend a decade being right about everything and you wake up one day and you have done nothing for yourself. You've created nothing of value for anyone, including yourself, especially yourself.
And so then what do you say to that 25-year-old kid that emails you, I'm sure you get them all the time, and says, what do I do, Jordan? What do I do? How do I become like Charlamagne the God?
Yeah.
How do I become like Neil deGrasse Tyson? How do I become like you?
Yeah.
What do you tell them?
If I had to go
dreams.
back, follow your passion. If I had to go back, and I wish I could, if I had to go back and start all over again, what I would do instead of going to graduate school right away, not that I had no value in it, I just didn't know what I was going to be able to do with it. I would go to a local CEO or one of my friends had the best job when I was an undergrad. She was the personal assistant to the CEO of the power company in Detroit, Michigan. And I said, oh, that must be so boring. She always had to fly. She always had to work 6-7 days a week. And I thought, that sucks. That job sucks. Wow, you're working so hard. You're not getting paid that much because you work for this public utility. What are you doing? And she's like, well, my uncle got me this job and it's actually okay. I'm so dense. That was the best job you could possibly have at age 23, 24. You're in the room with a high performer. You're in the car. You're flying in business class, which is great. But really, you're sitting next to this person. They're telling you what's on their mind. You're drafting the email. You're getting all their communication. You're formulating all of their communication, their responses. You're sitting in all these meetings where there's negotiations happening and you're taking notes. You're absorbing all of this. You can work your way up the corporate food chain and you can get in that room 10, 15, 20 years later as that person's underling, or you can, this is the hack. Now you're their lackey, great, you gotta go get coffee, too bad. You're in the room with all of those people with, 8 months of experience, 6 months, 0 months of experience because he's your uncle's friend? That is the ultimate hack. If you can get in front of high performers, if you can become an intern at a place that has a bunch of badass people working, even if you have to pay your own way to get there, that is the best thing you can get. When you're in your 20s, experience is priceless. Yeah, maybe you need a paycheck. Get another job. And if they say, why can't you come in 7 days a week? You say, because I bag groceries at a grocery store, because that's how I pay my rent. If you guys can give me $1,000 a month, I can do this, nothing but this. A high performer who gets an intern that's an all-star would gladly pay you that. If you're 25 and you're wondering how to get experience right now, 25, 20, 35, I don't care. If you can get in the room with the type of people that you want to be like, that is worth more than the opportunity cost of the job you're doing now. The only time you can't do it is if you screwed up and you bought a car, a house, a boat that you now have those golden handcuffs and you can't afford to do it. That's why all of that stuff should wait.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I get to share the room with high performers in this job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm even having flashbacks to even Wall Street. I mean, that first year on Wall Street, I mean, I had never been around high performance individuals that were commanding millions of dollars a year, cranking, and just being around those guys and just watching them, the way they carried themselves, the way they showed up. It was just like, I mean, MIT, whatever, 4 years, that's just knowledge, but this was like real life stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what you tell people. Get out there, be around high performers and learn that way.
Get in the room, man, any way that you can. And if somebody doesn't need an assistant because they already have one or because they don't think they do, figure out how you can run a project for that company or for that nonprofit or whatever it is, and just take charge on that, right? Show up, finagle a meeting with him however you can, by starting at the bottom or by cold email if you have to. Terrible way to do it, but better than nothing. And say, here's a project I think you guys would do great with. Here are my ideas of how I would run it. And if you're interested, I could run this for you and I'll do it for free. And once you show them that you don't have your head firmly planted in your butt, they will want you in the room, because it is so rare to find somebody that comes up with a great idea and can actually do it and is willing to do it for basically nothing. They would be absolutely foolish not to bring you in. And then once you're in the room, you get another chance every single day to prove your worth. That's how you end up being next to these amazing people. And then eventually you learn all you can from them and you say, look, I'd love to stay, but I need a $80,000 a year salary. And they'll say, anything to keep you. Yeah. And eventually you'll outgrow that, you'll be able to do your own thing. But you'll have just gotten a 4, 5, 6, 8 year PhD in being around the best people in that field, basically 24/7.
Yeah, and I get emails all the time, I know you do too, and 99 out of 100 want to buy you a coffee, and they want to tell you what's in it for them.
Right.
Rarely do you get someone who goes out of their way, sometimes invests in you, like writes an article or does some research and just says, here, I'm ready to hustle, can I come by? Rarely, but when it happens, you kind of want to pull the trigger, because it's just, no one's usually that forward thinking.
No.
And you want to give them a try.
Yeah, I agree. And here's a way to get these people's attention, right? Because of course, I'd love to pick your brain, and it's like, oh, the spirit is there, but an hour and a half, hour of my time, I don't need free coffee. It's not free. It's a $2,000 consulting session that I get for a $4 Starbucks in the middle of my otherwise productive trip to the UK, right? What you can do is find a conference that you think needs maybe, or either needs help booking people or will take help booking people, and then you can find somebody who's a great fit for that, and you say, look, there's a media convention in New York, you'd be a great fit for it, would you present there? They don't have a speaker budget. You can find a CEO of a company, they'll usually go and give a talk because they want to build brand awareness. And then you offer to bring then that CEO to that conference, and the conference organizer says, wow, the president of Detroit Energy? Yeah, sure. We'd love to have them come in. And then you go back to that CEO and you say, great, looks like that's going to be set. I know you don't have time to prepare a presentation. Can I help you with that as well? And they go, well, you got me the speaking gig. I would love the help with the presentation. So now you've got a meeting to meet with that CEO to prep them for that conference, and you bring your A game, your PowerPoint A game, and you go through their content with them, create everything, create all the slides, hire a designer on freaking Fiverr if you have to, if you don't have the chops, create that presentation for them, go pick them up from the airport, drive them to that conference, drop them off and attend, sit in the front row, whatever, the green room, help run that presentation for them. At the end, they're like, this kid knows what he's doing. That conference loves you, that CEO loves you. They don't have to know that you kind of arbitraged both of those. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think people are scribbling right now.
Yeah, I hope so. I wish I'd known that like 10 years ago.
Yeah, so this is kind of hacking the system. And so this works really nicely to maybe now talk a little bit about networking, because it's a weird word. I think a lot of people write books about it, but they don't really necessarily practice it, and they didn't learn it on the ground. And it's something that you've actually become pretty well known for. You gave a talk at Google about this. It was a really good talk. I could actually hear their brains grinding in the back. And again, you're really good at giving them actionable information. You said to those people, you said, you work at Google, you can have any visitor here. Yeah. Like, that's a hack right there. You can have people coming in, building your network just because of where you work. This is great stuff. But tell me about this concept of networking. What do people think it is? What is it not what we think it is?
Yeah.
And just tell me, how did you even get in turn with that? Because you're an introverted guy.
Yeah. It's nobody believes that right now because I'm sitting here yelling, at you and on your set here. But networking is a dirty word. Whenever we hear it, we think like, oh God, I don't want to be that guy who walks into some stupid mixer and is like handing out Vistaprint business cards and annoying people like, hey, when you need a financial planner, give me a call. That's what we think of when we think of networking. I had to learn relationship development or networking when I worked on Wall Street because I thought, speaking of imposter syndrome earlier, when I got there, I thought, I'm gonna get fired because eventually they're gonna figure out that I'm not smart enough to be in the room with all these guys and gals. So,
which was true, or your own security?
It was my own, it's just imposter syndrome. And one thing I've learned from interviewing all these people on the Jordan Harbinger show is like, you'll get a Navy SEAL and they'll be like, they're just gonna find out that I'm not cut out for this, Or you'll get some CEO or some amazing artist and it's actually a hallmark of a high performer to believe secretly that one day you're gonna get found out as a fraud, and it's totally irrational.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's actually a hallmark of you know who doesn't have imposter syndrome? High school kids. They're great at everything. They know everything, right? People who have imposter syndrome include some of the most high visibility celebrities I've ever had. Imposter syndrome includes the ones who are like, I'm just glad people like what I'm doing, and it's like, are you kidding?
Right, I'm one movie away, one album away from going to nothing, right?
Right, yeah, they just think it's all gonna fall apart, right? And you see them.
That's why they work so hard.
That's why they work so hard, or it's unfortunately why a lot of us/them will self-medicate, because they're thinking, this is a foregone conclusion that I'm eventually gonna fail. And so we see that. The reason I got into networking and relationships was because I thought, I'm probably gonna get fired at some point, because I shouldn't be here, I slipped through the cracks. I didn't belong at Michigan Law. I don't belong at this Wall Street law firm. What I need to do is work from home, because if I work from home, it'll take longer for them to figure out that I don't belong here. And then maybe by then I'll figure out what I want to do with my life, or maybe I'll figure out how to behave in the office better, and then I won't get fired by some miracle. So what I did was I started to figure out schemes of how I could work from home. And there was a partner who had hired me. His name was Dave, and he was never in the office. And I assumed the reason he was never in the office was because he worked from home. So one day I asked him over coffee, because he was supposed to mentor me or whatever, how come you're never in the office? Do you work from home all the time? Thinking I'm gonna get like the secret up, up, down, down, left, right cheat code to working from home. And he said, well, I work from home sometimes, but why are you asking me this? And I thought, well, all right, people say you're never in the office, but you're one of the youngest and highest paid partners. And of course he sets his BlackBerry down. He's like, people say I'm never in the office. And now I'm just like, great, I'm getting fired at Starbucks in the basement of this office building in Manhattan. What did I get myself into? I just accelerated the process of losing this job. Maybe it's for the best. And I said, now I'm backtracking. Well, that's a rumor around the office, is that you work from home because you're never around. He goes, no, man. I'm generating relationships to get clients for the firm. It's less valuable. They're billing $800 to $1,000 an hour as a partner at this law firm. It's better, money better spent, time better spent hanging out with an investment banker and playing squash, or going on a cycle, or going to a charity gala, than to sit in the office and bill. Because if they can bring in $1 million law deal every quarter, they don't need to worry about their billable hour bonus. They don't need to grind away at $800 an hour to make their salary ROI positive. They're bringing in clients. And I thought, well, wait a minute. If I can learn how to bring in clients, they'll never fire me from this gig. If I can bring in a client, even one every like 3 years, I'll never get fired, and I might even get promoted. So I thought, there's no way I can get smarter. There's no way I can work more than I am now, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Those are the levers that I can't pull anymore. My competitive advantage in law school was I can outwork everyone, right? My competitive advantage in middle school, high school, was that I was smart and I could figure out and get better grades than everyone because I had a little bit of natural talent. But I could no longer be smarter than everyone. I could no longer outwork everyone. So I had to find another competitive advantage. They had been wiped out. And that secret third path for me turned out to be relationships and networking. Mm-hmm. And I thought, by the time my colleagues figure this out, I'm gonna have a 3, 4, 5 year advantage on relationship development. So I dedicated myself to figuring out that angle. And it was actually quite tricky to do, because if you look for networking class or whatever, you find like Dale Carnegie, and they're going, look them in the eye and have a firm handshake.
Say their first name.
You know? Yeah, say their first name 3 times, Brian. Yeah. That's right, Brian. And so if you do that, it's fine, it's better than nothing. But realistically, if I'm not giving you $1 million law deal, probably not eye contact, probably not a firm handshake. Oh, you didn't remember that my kids play tennis? You're not getting a deal. That's not why. There's something else more nuanced that a guy in a sweater vest at the YMCA is just not going to pinpoint for you. And I wanted to find out what that was. So I started reading and taking classes on psychology. Intelligence agents are really good at this. Intelligence agents don't turn Russian spies into American double agents by having a firm handshake and looking them in the eye. That's not how this works. There's something else going on.
They're building relationships.
They're building relationships in some other way. So I dedicated the rest of my time to working on that skill set.
Did you get good at it?
And I got good at it. I got real good at it. And by the time the law firm thing started to go downhill and that firm, that 140-year-old law firm actually went under, I'd been doing the show on Sirius XM satellite radio. The podcast had started to build. And that's when I started to train people in these skills. And that's why one of the reasons I'm actually here in London now is working with some of the domestic and foreign intelligence agencies and guys from the US and the UK in these same skills, because our national security, the security of the world, is based on tight groups of people and their ability to generate relationships with one another. The reason we're not in a nuclear fallout shelter right now is because of the relationship building skills of people at high level in intelligence and government, period.
And they bring you in to help them talk about that.
And they bring us in to help them talk about that and
nonverbal communications, all sorts of that, rapport building, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not just an interviewer on the Jordan Harbinger show. The side hustle, so to speak, is persuasion, influence, and relationship development at the level of it has to work or someone dies.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
And that originally got you in to pick up Art of Charm.
Yeah.
But then quickly that wasn't the direction you wanted to go, because that wasn't in your character.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you have the choice to teach guys how to meet women, and then everybody who you train that gets good at it doesn't need you anymore, that is not so rewarding. And the guys that still need it after 8 years, they need therapy. They don't need new tactics. They need to go to a psychologist. So all of the cool people that you've helped build up outgrow you. That's depressing. So I wanted to get into the real stuff. And frankly, a lot of the relationship development networking tactics that are being used by intelligence and military and government, it's just a more rewarding, more interesting path to sit there with somebody who's got an 8-year deployment undercover to Iran. The stories are better than what you get from somebody who's like, yeah, I just can't get laid. I mean, it's just a completely different world. And in my opinion, a much better use of these skills than dating and relationships. Like, that stuff has its place, but if you can help guarantee the security of the free world, that just seems a little bit of a loftier goal that's more worth pursuing.
Yeah. Most people have no idea how to start networking. They don't know how to do it. They don't know why they need to do it now.
Right.
And I think you told an analogy before that, most people have backup plans when it comes to spare tires in their cars or maybe a little bit of savings, but no one ever really thinks forward about how your network can be of value. It's a weird amorphous thing. And so how do you teach people to start learning about this kind of fascinating art of what do you call it, relationship building? No,
relationship development. I mean,
I like that.
I hate the word networking because it just conjures up the guy in the ill-fitting suit being like, have a stale cookie, thanks for coming to my mixer.
Cards, trying to talk to 25 people in the room.
Right, and the card's so thin that when you hold it in your hand, it curls up a little bit, right? Because it's in it on the back, it says, for free cards, go to freecardsareus.net, because they couldn't afford the .com. So the trick is to dig your well before you're thirsty. I think it's Harvey McKay who originally coined that term. Okay. Some sort of old school self-help or networking business guru. And he was right. Dig the well before you're thirsty. What this means is you have to create these relationships with people before you need to leverage them. And commonly I'll get, especially young people, and I totally get why, because when I was younger I thought this way too. Why do I need to network? I'm still in college. It doesn't matter for me right now. I don't need a job. I have a job lined up. I don't need to network. That mindset is toxic and dangerous, even if it doesn't, It's not necessarily, I don't think those people are stupid, right? I get it. Why do I need this? I spent years thinking, I don't need this, I'll network later.
Right,
In fact,
I'll never see these guys again
I'll never see these guys again, yeah.
Which is so not true.
It's so not true. Well, it might be true if you're not working to build the relationship, but it's sad. And I thought, if I work my way up the corporate ladder, at some point, ... country club ... network, right? You become a partner at the firm by putting in your hours, and then you've got a network. It's the other way around. At least it's faster the other way around. And when people say like, well, it's all about who you know, they put stank on it, right? They're like, oh, well, Sheila got promoted because it's all about who you know. I want people saying that about me. I want people to be like, oh, he has an unfair advantage. Yeah, I worked hard for that unfair advantage, and you should work hard for that unfair advantage as well. It's the best unfair advantage that you can get because it's fully within your control to develop those relationships. And I know that a lot of people are born into it, and that's great, good for them. A lot of people marry into it. If you can do that, I highly recommend doing that if you can.
Marry into a family that has connections. Right?
Yeah, great, good for you. For the rest of us, we have to build it. And the good news is that it's the tortoise and the hare, right? If you're building it, you've got your foot on the gas. If you were born into it, you're probably coasting. And so I remember I got a buddy, great guy actually. His family has like a private island off the coast of Connecticut. He's got a life-size, bigger than life-size picture of Paul Revere in his house because it's like his great-great-granduncle or something like that. He's a great guy, he's one of my best friends, but I remember this moment in law school when I met him or found out that he had that painting, and I went, I'm never gonna have a network like this kid was born with. When this kid was 1 day old, he had a better network than I'll ever have in my whole life. I remember thinking that, and now that's not the case because I've got my foot on the gas for the last 8 to 10 years creating friendships. These aren't fake relationships. I'm not texting people with BS. I'm not trying to go to parties where I don't like anybody and hobnobbing with fancy people. That's not what networking is. It's literally just making friends with great people and then introducing them to each other so that they can help each other. I don't have to sacrifice family time to create this network. I have a bigger network, a better network than a lot of these people because I just tried hard. The people who are born into it, who don't value it, they're coasting necessarily. They don't need it. They don't see the value. And so by creating these relationships, it's just a matter of having a lot of diverse friends that actually care about your success and then introducing them to one another. It's scalable. I don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. It just becomes a way of being in a set of habits that now has yielded dividends throughout my life.
And you're not going to parties you don't want to be. You're hanging out with your wife and your cat and podcasting, and yet in the background you are hooking people up. You're adding value to them. This is the thing you do. You just pump out the value, and it's not like some. What is it? A lot of people get into like this points game. I did this for you, and you did this for me.
Yeah, the quid pro quo. Yeah,
right.
Tit for tat.
Spoken like a lawyer.
That's right.
Lawyer.
It's Latin. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Tit for tat is, I believe, English.
Most people would be mind blown to think that I don't have to go to the parties I don't want to go to and pass up my cards and blah, 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 blah to build that network.
You don't have to do any of that. The good news is all that fake seeming crap, not just optional, unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. You don't have to do that. The best way to begin creating networks is to look at who you already know and figure out how you can introduce those people to one another in ways that will help them. So here's a quick sort of practical exercise that I recommend everybody do. The fancy, catchy name I give it is Layoff Lifelines, because what it is imagine that your business implodes or you get laid off like today, God forbid. Make a list of the 10 or 15 people that you would call for advice. Leave out your parents, leave out like the obvious ones, like my brother, people you're in touch with regularly. Try and pick people that you would call if you were desperate, because that's the idea. And these will tend to be, there'll be 10 or 15. Spend 20 minutes doing this. These will be the relationships that you probably should have paid more attention to, but you neglected because you didn't need anything from them. So it's gonna be like that college professor that mentored you, but you never really followed up with after graduation. Your old boss, your ex-girlfriend's dad who really liked you and owned that cool business, but like you broke up with her, so now you're not in touch anymore. Those people, then reach out to them now while you don't need anything, because you're gonna rekindle those relationships, and they're gonna realize that you're trying to rekindle those relationships, but you're not saying, and by the way, I need $10,000, or by the way, can I get a job? Networking is awkward when you need something, but you done screwed up and you didn't put any energy into it. The reason people think networking and relationship development is awkward is because they reach out and they're like, hey, Brian, I haven't talked to you in like 4 years. Can you sell my dog grooming ebook to your email list? And it's like, oh man, that was so awkward. Oh man, I got rejected. I hate networking. You're not networking when you do that. The reason it's awkward is because you neglected all the groundwork. You didn't dig the well before you're thirsty. If you rekindle those relationships now while you don't have an agenda, it's much easier. And I know people are going, well, what do I say? I haven't talked to them in 5 years. Literally reach out and say, I've done a really bad job keeping in touch. I'm trying to get better at keeping in touch. I know I neglected our relationship in the past. I'd love to get together for coffee or something like that if you have time. If not, no worries, totally optional. And you gotta be careful, because whenever somebody hasn't heard from you in like 2-3 years or more, at least when I get those emails, I'm like, is it Herbalife or Scientology? Like, what are you gonna pounce on me with when I get in the room? And so you might have to do a little bit of trust generation. Like if they're like, hey, I'm down, I always valued our relationship, but is there something else? You can say, you can even joke, you can say, look, I promise I'm not trying to sell you Herbalife or Scientology. I really just do realize that I haven't done any relationship building or networking, and I've let a lot of great relationships, especially yours and mine, slip through the cracks over the past few years, focused on myself and my career, and I want to remedy that. People will respect this.
Right.
They will respect this, and it will do wonders for you. If you make that list and you do that, you'll see relationships that you thought were dead spark back up, and it will change your life. It really will.
And then start trying to add value to their life by introducing them to each other or whatever you can to add value, right?
Yeah. One thing that I'll do typically every day is, well, of course I've got that list, right? I say do that. That shakes the rust off, and it shows you that networking, relationship development can be really fun and rewarding. Because look at all, if 12 of those people out of 15 or 20 get back to you and they're excited to hear from you, you get that little dopamine hit of like, oh, I like this. This isn't as hard as I thought. It's not awkward. Now every day I'll go into my text messaging app on my phone around 10 a.m. and I'll scroll all the way to the bottom. And at the bottom are those little chats with people that you met once at like a financial conference 3 years ago, and you met for lunch, but you never followed up.
It's like 300 down.
Yeah, like it's just like all the way down at the very bottom. If you go and you start texting maybe 4 or 5 of those people every day, you can send them something along the same lines as you did with Layoff Lifelines. You could say, hey, Brian, I know it's been a really long time. I wonder what the latest with you is. I've done a really crap job at keeping in touch. I fully accept responsibility for that. What's the latest with you? I'd love to hear an update on your life. I promise I'm not trying to sell you Herbalife or recruit you to Scientology, just really wondering what the latest is with you. You can even include where you met them, because if it's like, oh man, where do I know this guy? You could say, it's been a minute since we met at Cafe Gratitude in San Diego. What's the latest with you? Sign your name, because if you don't sign your name, you're either gonna get new phone, who dis, or they're gonna go, shoot, I don't know who this person is. I'm gonna ignore it. That way I don't embarrass them and I don't embarrass myself. So if you sign your first and last name, and if you can remember where you met last or where you saw each other last, they're much more likely to respond. Doing that has upgraded my response rate from about 40% upwards of 70%.
Okay.
And I'll text 4 or 5 people a day doing this, and that's like 20, 25, even 30 people per week. Maybe 20 will respond. You'll get a little update on those people, and don't worry, you're not gonna get like people trying to chat with you all day. Everybody's busy. And then you find out what they're doing, and you can offer to connect them to other people in your network. And that's what's really helpful, because you don't have to, if you're a graphic designer, you don't have to give free graphic design to everybody who responds in order to build value. You can say, oh yeah, this person got a new job as a CPA. They're trying to build their client book. Well, I got friends that just started small businesses according to their responses. Let me see if they need that type of service. And then you do the double opt-in, right? You say, hey, friend who just started a business, Are you looking for a CPA? I've got another friend who's joined a CPA firm. They've got 5 years of experience. They're trying to build their book of business. They're a really trustworthy, good person. Is that something you might need? Then you can ask that CPA, are you taking on new clients? If the answer is in the affirmative for both parties, then you make that double opt-in introduction.
Right, which is crucial. The double opt-in is crucial.
The double opt-in is crucial. I'll tell you why in a second, right? You make that introduction. Now, both of those people feel like they owe you one. That took you 10 minutes. 2 minutes for each email, 2 minutes for the rest, 6 minutes, whatever, right? Math never was my strong suit. That's why I became a lawyer. So you make those introductions. That's how you build value. And the double opt-in, yeah, it's crucial because if you introduce people to each other, I'm sure this has probably happened to you and I at some point. Jordan, you should meet Brian. He's the host. I already know him, right? So you wasted your time. They wasted my time. They wasted their own time. And they kind of look dumb because they didn't check in. Double opt-in signals professionalism. It also avoids the whole, Jordan, meet Jim. He's great. And then I go, damn it, I've been avoiding Jim for 6 months. Now I'm CC'd on an email. I got to reply. So the double opt-in avoids that, right? I can say, look, I'm a little busy right now. Let's not do the Jim intro just yet. That way you get permission from both parties, you signal professionalism, and it increases the likelihood that they'll both respond. Because if I say, sure, make that intro, and you say, sure, make that intro, well, now if we don't respond, that's pretty shady. If we both say we'll take it, and then we get that, we're much more likely to reply. So that double opt-in shows that you know how to make an intro, you value their time, and it increases the likelihood of success. And it takes an extra maybe 4 minutes to write each, to do those emails properly.
Right. And so you're building up goodwill with this massive network.
Right.
And then what happens? Do you have to call in favors sometimes, or just with the dialogue? Do you just find that things flow to you? Here's a suggestion, here's that. And then my final question is, what happens when they all want to ask to be on the Jordan Harbinger show?
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
have to say no.
Sure. When the way that you get, so people go, well, wait, what's in it for me, right? Is that what you're asking? Like, you're making all these intros. How do you cash in on it?
Yeah, or like, I mean, which is obviously not the right way to look at it.
Of course,
but
yeah. But people are thinking that. It's a fair question.
Yeah.
People are thinking that. The way that you do this is expect 99 out of 100 to never give you anything in return. That is by no means the actual rate of return, by the way. It's more like 60% will help you, the other 40% won't, and even if it's inverted, it doesn't matter because you're not taking that much time to do this. And worst case scenario, you get a rep as a really helpful, value-giving person who knows everyone. That's the least amount of reward that you get, right? The way that you sort of get what's in it for you is when you need something, you have a ton of people that you can reach out to, and you just ask them for advice or connections. Fair enough, you gave them advice or a connection before, and you give without the attachment to getting anything in return, right? If I introduce you to somebody who supplies metal dogs, I don't necessarily go, well, now you have to sell my dog grooming ebook to your email list, right? That's not how it works. But I might say, hey, I got this dog grooming ebook. Do you know anyone who sells dog grooming products who might be interested in this? You might say, actually, my London Real fan would love this. Let me send it out. Or you might say, I know some pet store owners in the London area. Let me reach out to them as the first half of the double opt-in and see if they're into this. You don't have to do it. And I know that you don't have to do it, but you'll probably want to do it at some level because of the amount of help that you've gotten from me on other things. Yeah. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because I haven't spent I'm not sitting here doing hours of work for you only to have you be like, I'm not doing anything for you, right? So you can always ask other people, and it's not awkward because you've spent so much time and energy building goodwill that it becomes interesting for you just to see what your network can do for you. And here's a little cheat. If people are worried about asking for help, ask for help on behalf of someone else. Like, hey, look, my friend really needs to know how you built your set. You got a great set for London Real. Would you mind connecting with them on this? And you go, yeah, sure, man. A friend of yours is a friend of mine. Then I go, well, all right, well, that wasn't that hard. I got Brian to help my friend. I wonder if Brian would ever help me with anything. You start to realize that asking for things when you've more than earned it is fine. And also having people say, no, I can't help you, doesn't mean that you're a bad person and it's the end of the world. And it also doesn't mean that they don't want to be your friend anymore. And it also doesn't mean that you or using up the networking pie, right? It doesn't mean that you've expelled your social currency. Helping other people builds social currency, it builds social capital. Connecting people to each other builds social capital. It's a muscle. It gets bigger with use. It's not a pie where after you make the intro, it's gone and you can't use it for anybody else or anything else.
Yeah.
And that's the important takeaway, is the more you use it, the better those connections are. I have friends I've introduced to dozens of people. Our relationship is stronger because of that. They're not thinking, man, if Jordan keeps making these helpful introductions, I'm never gonna talk to him again. That's not how this works.
Yeah, and sometimes asking for a favor can actually make the relationship stronger.
Of
right?
course, people want to help you.
And when they help you, they actually feel more invested in who you are.
Exactly.
And again, you can always say, ask for advice. That's a great thing to do. Can you give me advice?
Yeah.
It's easy, and if they really want to help you, they'll say, here's some advice, and I can help you. Or again, do you know anybody that could help? And if they really want to help you, they'll say, I can help.
Yeah.
And if not, they'll say no, or they'll hook you up with someone. I mean, there's ways all around that. And I know you're not into energy necessarily,
No.
but I am lately because of London Real. But if you are constantly adding value to the world, it comes back to you. Like I just find that. You know,
of course, but that's not some metaphysical process,
no,
right?
well, maybe a little bit, but it puts you in this frame, right? I don't know. It puts you in the content in the company of great people, or it puts you in this value add frame where I don't know. It draws back to you. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on here is not like the universe provides. Man, when people say that,
I hear you, but what is it then?
So what's going on there is you're helping so many people, you're developing a lot of goodwill. People want to, there may be the law of reciprocity, right? Yeah. If you help me a bunch on a bunch of stuff, I feel, unless I'm a sociopath or something like that, I feel like I owe you something. I don't know how to repay you. And I might send your wife some flowers and be like, well, kind of better than nothing. But then you say, hey man, I really want to know where you get all those fancy socks that you wear on your show. Great, I would love to hook you up with some fancy socks. It's the least I can do. You help me build my set, you help me get all this camera gear at a discount, you found me some really cool Union Jack sales like the one you have. That type of thing, you want to help people that have helped you. That's just what well-adjusted people tend to do. And when I had to start the Jordan Harbinger show from scratch earlier in 2018, I'm trying to remember what year it is now. When I had to start from scratch, I thought
about a year ago.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought, how am I going to do this? I built the other show for 11 years. I got to start over.
Yeah. Let's talk about that transition a little, because I think you and I have been in contact the last couple of years, and I could see it coming. But I mean, that's a big trigger to pull because you're married to that brand.
Yeah.
You are that guy. But can you just talk about that transition process, and then how maybe the network helped you? Yeah,
the transition process was rough, and it still is. In fact, I negotiated an amicable split with the company because I just couldn't be the pickup guy anymore. It was just killing me. I hated it. I'm married. I'm gonna start a family soon. Like, I don't want that. I wanted to teach intelligence agents and civilians life-changing stuff. I wanted to interview great people. I didn't want to be stuck with this pickup brand.
And it was still hurting you, even though you had made it your own thing.
Yeah, it was still hurting.
Besides the words, the art of charm, if you knew what that was, it was basically your show and you were doing your thing.
Right.
And then every now and then there was some basics, the toolbox or product placement or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was enough to where you were like, enough. But you also maybe thought, it's time I do my own thing too?
There was that, and also it was just, I could no longer carry everyone else that was at the level in that company with me. I had brought people in, we were 26, 27 when we started it. It made sense to give everybody equity in what I was doing. And then it was just like, I'm working 90 hours a week, loving it, and I can't get just basic help from my partners. I just can't get any sort of heavy lifting done that I don't do myself, or I had to run everything on my side of the business. And it was just, there were a lot of other things. I don't want to disparage anyone, but it was just like, I knew that I was carrying dead weight, like a lot of it. And I needed to get rid of it. And I wanted to split amicably, but as egos get involved, that deal was not honored. And now it's a legal situation, but I was forced to start over essentially from scratch. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? This is gonna be impossible. And I floated the word out to my network that I needed help relaunching. And the Jordan Harbinger show within 8 months became bigger than The Art of Charm ever was in terms of downloads per month.
That's crazy.
It was totally unexpected.
And talk to me about that 3 or 4 or 8 week period where you're like, okay, I got to take the big leap and go out on my own. And you must have had some real come to Jesus moments. And,
yeah.
You know, again, maybe that imposter syndrome rears its ugly head, but you're never going to know if you can replicate it or if you're down to 100 downloads a month.
Right.
You know, and if is it me or was it the brand or do they have the link on their phone that auto downloads and they won't go to the new link? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, I had no way to talk to my original audience at AOC. I had to start the Jordan Harbinger show from scratch. I had no idea if anybody was going to switch over and listen. I had no way to tell everybody what happened. I didn't want to talk negatively about my former business partners, regardless of how much I thought, especially at the time, that they deserved it, that the world needed to hear the truth, right? I didn't want that to reflect negatively upon me personally. I didn't want to sully my personal brand by getting in the dirt with that. And so I thought, I'm screwed. I didn't sleep for a long time, lost a bunch of weight, which actually, you know, was kind of, people were like, you look great. And I'm like, it's called the My Life is Over diet, where you don't sleep and you don't eat. I don't recommend it, right? I mean, it's kind of like the heroin diet, only less fun, I would imagine, anyway. And probably too dark. But what happened was, I just thought, I have no choice but to try again. I have to get up. All these memes about the great man falls 7 times and gets up 8 or whatever. This is when those things count, right? You can put that crap on your Twitter feed all you want, but until you get tested, there's nothing there. It's like jujitsu, right? You can walk around being like, I'm tough. If anybody ever came up to me, I'd be like, combo this, combo. You go to roll jujitsu, and some white belt who's been there for a week crushes you. You can no longer, your ego, all those lies you told yourself about how hard you were for your whole life melt away in an instant. That happened in business for me, where it was like, I now have to decide, do I quit and work at whatever, some company, and just give up, or do I rebuild this? And I had to rebuild it. And I had a lot of great help from my network. The relationships that I had, this is the best insurance policy that you can have, and you can't buy it. You can't purchase the goodwill of all these folks that you helped over the last 10, 11 years, whatever it was at the time. You can't purchase people going out of their way, offering you money. I had friends that I was buddies with these guys that said things like, look, man, I can loan you $100,000. I can invest in you. I can introduce you to these people who can loan you camera gear for your stuff. I didn't need to take those people up on that, thankfully. But I remember when I started floating this out, I had people go, I'm gonna email this out to my list tomorrow. I'm gonna float this out to my list now. I'm gonna tweet this out now that you have a new show. And I'm just thinking, you know, if I bought that level of sponsorship from this friend, it would have been like 20, 25 grand. Right. They just sent a dedicated email, Jordan's got a new show, check it out. That was incredible. These people didn't expect anything in return. They're not trading me for anything. I had nothing to give, right? I'd already paid my dues in advance by being a good person, helping them out, not asking for anything in return for years. That insurance policy was what got me back to the top. It wasn't just like, oh, finally, Jordan's got a new show. I can go subscribe. This is all great. I didn't have an email list. I didn't have a website. All my social media accounts were gone because they were owned by the company, the brand that I built for 11 years. In order to play things by the book, I had to leave those alone. And I did. And I started from absolutely nothing with my work ethic, with my wife, with my team on the podcast side, because when I essentially got fired from AOC, I managed to the rest of the team left with me because I had been the leader for so long. They just left with me. I was able to take the talent, not my talent, the talent of the team, my hard work, and most importantly, the network of the friends that we had developed. That was why we were able to go from 0 to 4.5 million downloads a month in 8-10 months, whatever it was. That was why we were able to do that. If I'd had to do it on my own, there's no way. I mean, it would have taken me another 10 years to get back to where we were.
Wow. So it was all by scratch, and you really leveraged that network.
Yeah.
You probably found a whole new bunch of fans that way.
New fans, definitely. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people that go, hey, I know some weird thing happened with your old show, but I just found your new show and it's great. It was the end. I don't recommend this. I wouldn't prescribe starting from zero for anyone. It's traumatizing, but I will say that it gave us, you don't think you can go back to startup mode now. Like, I guarantee you don't think if I had to start from zero, this would be fine. Like, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. But knowing that you can do it is one of the most gratifying things that's ever happened to me. Knowing now, I used to have recurring nightmares that I lost my business and I had nothing and I had to start over and I'd wake up in a cold sweat. Now I know I can handle that. And that's sort of priceless confidence.
Yeah, it's because of your reputation and your network.
Yeah.
And, you know, some resilience.
Yeah.
And those people that came with you, that trusted you, that you built, you know, relationships and goodwill with, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the show fans that came with us to the Jordan Harbinger show, the podcasters and other people on YouTube and all the influencers and all the people that I knew that I met for the last 11 years when I floated that distress signal out. There's only one person that didn't really help me, and I will always remember that. And I won't blow him up here, but everybody else helped. Everybody else. And that to me was heartwarming in a way that the words don't do it justice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so what are the plans for the Jordan Harbinger show and you in your life, you know, here on out?
Yeah.
Has that must have changed, because you must have felt a little kind of shackled before.
I did.
You couldn't really expand here and there because it's not necessarily yours and it's off-brand.
Right.
But now you can go everywhere, which maybe is a little daunting as well.
Yeah, it is daunting. Yeah, once the options are displayed for you, you start to realize when you have unlimited possibility, sure, having limited possibility or being pigeonholed is worse, but having unlimited possibility is also really scary because you have to evolve your thinking. I remember telling a friend, oh, well, I'm gonna also do my podcast and I'm gonna do more YouTube and I'm gonna interview whoever I want. And people are like, wait, you have the ability to blank slate and all you're gonna do is like branch out a little bit? What do you want to make of your life now? And it's like, oh wait, hold on, let me sit down, write some stuff out, get back to you, go on a meditation retreat or something, right? Like you got a lot of thinking to do. It's like when you left finance, you probably weren't thinking like, well, I'm gonna create this grand vision where I'm gonna transform men and women around the world. You probably went like, well, I should probably do something, and I like film. You know, that was probably the plan.
Yeah.
And
I was watching Rogan, and I was like, that looks cool.
That looks fun.
Let's
Maybe
do
I'll
it.
try that.
Yeah.
And so you have to expand your thinking, and that's a challenge. I'm gonna start a family pretty soon. That's hopefully, right? That's in the cards.
Yeah.
I want to continue working with the Jordan Harbinger show, interviewing amazing people, making their wisdom available to everyone. But what I've really doubled down on and what I plan to triple down on is teaching the intelligence and civilian world, the agencies, the military, these relationship development, these nonverbal communication skills, these networking skills, because I didn't get a chance to serve in the armed forces, right? I'm too old now, too much of a wimp. So I think it would be an honor to help the men and women in uniform and help protect the country and the so-called free world with those skills, alongside learning from just some of the most amazing people around. You know, being able to go to Darren Brown or Russell Brand's house and sit in there and get in their head and pull out that learning and teach people is something special for me. And it's like being an author, excuse me, it's like being an author, except I don't have to write, you know? I get to do the fun part.
Right, and you get to ask these people these questions. Well, it's a pretty exciting time, you know, for you going forward. I gotta ask, and I'm sure people asked this before, but from one, you know, broadcaster to another, top 3 guests on your show and why, you know? Great
question. Let's see. Robert Greene.
Right, and that's something you
Truly
did
next
recently.
level.
You had him on before on the show, or was that the first time you had him on recently?
I had him on recently. I had him on a long, long time ago as well, like 7 years ago.
Okay.
And Robert Greene was really amazing. He and I talked about things he hasn't mentioned anywhere else. And one of the things that really stood out was the the idea of toxic envy and being able to sort of see these negative traits in yourself.
Okay.
And that's something, I won't deep dive too much into it here, but that guy has a way of showing you a mirror and forcing you to hold it up to yourself in a way that might be uncomfortable.
Right, and you were talking about it earlier, when someone bothers you,
Yeah.
maybe time to go introspective a little
Yeah.
bit. Is that what his latest book is about, or is that just one of the things he
It's just
talked
one of the
about?
things he talks about, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's just one of the things he talks about. And then another guest that I really, really enjoy all the time is Jocko, because
And you went out of your way and went down to San Diego
Yeah.
and interviewed him in person. What makes that trip worth it? Because you did that with Chef Gordon in Hawaii as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's no joke to fly out there and do these things, you know?
Yeah.
And so you must choose that. What, why did you go down there, and what did you learn from Jocko?
So Jocko's an interesting character because he doesn't lean heavily towards practical information, right? He's not saying, get out a notebook and write down 5 things, but his attitude, his demeanor is contagious in a way. And he sees through BS and excuses in a way that isn't something you can ignore. And what I mean by that is, obviously he's led these SEAL teams, and he's made sure, excuse me, I must have swallowed a bee on the way in.
It's all right.
He does this in a way where you don't have the option of pretending that you're an exception to the rule. And so that makes it special. That made it worth the trip. And also I wanted to do him the solid. You know, he asked me, hey, I got a new book, can I come on the show? And I thought this is a great time to get him back on the show. And he's been on twice in the last year, which is highly unusual for me. Additionally, man, there's just so many great guests.
And with
that I've had
Jocko,
on.
because I had my own experience with Jocko, I mean, we had him on about 2.5 years ago. I had really just heard him on Ferris and Rogan, and then we reached out, and bam, he was in London, and I was like, whoa. And then
Yeah,
I
you're
told
lucky.
myself, okay, scary Navy SEAL, real deal. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be intimidating. I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
And then Jocko isn't, well, he's not a real icebreaker either, you know?
No, that's true.
And so, and like, to his credit though, I think that's just kind of ingrained. I think he had a rule of, I don't smile for 6 months, you know, when I meet you in the military, you know, he would just never do
gotcha.
that.
Okay, I
because
didn't know
that was
that.
like the frame. But for me, it was afterwards where Jocko had the impact on me, because he made a big impression on me. And then I just started thinking about my life, extreme ownership. I like reread the books, and, you know, then it's just kind of what he stands for.
Yeah.
You know, really made an impact on me.
I agree with you there, and I think that's the exception. It's an exception. A lot of people can't just show up and represent something. They have to really talk about what it is that they do, or they have to really kind of give you some bit of insight that changes your life. And he's different in a way where he can kind of come in and like it gets beamed into your head.
Yeah.
And that makes it, there's not a whole lot of people that can do that. Another guy that I think is really amazing, who also is a show host, is Tom Bilyeu
Yeah.
of Impact Theory.
Yeah, we've had him on here. And
He's a really, very, very seldom do you meet influencers that actually walk the walk. He's built companies that are worth a ton. He's switched on, he's smart, he's one of the hardest workers that's around. And he's extremely talented and extremely hardworking. And I think he's a worthy follow, and I think he's a worthy listen or watch as well.
And he described your relationship. I mean, you reached out to him early on and offered help. And I mean, this is not a typical capitalistic business behavior.
No.
Where he's technically, a lot of people would say that's competition.
Yeah.
And you're reaching out to someone, you've been in this space for 10, 12 years, and you're saying, hey, how can I help?
Yeah.
And okay, you're an amazing network builder, so maybe that's default. But still, you know, why do that?
There's a couple reasons. One, I saw his level of talent. Talent is one of those words that cheapens what people do. I saw his level of work ethic and the mindset, how sharp he was, how incredibly intelligent he was, and that made me want to be on his team. And if I didn't have what I was doing, I would probably want to work there, you know? And that's rare. I don't really have a long list of people that I would want to work with. And so that made me want to be like, he's going to win. I want to get on the ground floor of that. I want to be a part of that success, even if it's just helping in these minor ways, making introductions, whatever. So that helped. The other thing is, I figured he's doing something where he's going to go in this different direction. He's probably going to win in that sort of space. He's going to have major wins in that space. I want those kinds of allies. And I don't see, it's not like people can only listen to London Real and they can't listen to the Jordan Harbinger show. People are going to listen to the Jordan Harbinger show. People are the same people who watch London Real and the same people who watch Impact Theory. This is high quality. You don't just get one book, right? You read all of them. So I want those kinds of allies. I want those people on my team. And the best way to get people on your team is to be on theirs.
Yeah. I learned that early on in this space when I watched Rogan getting people on the show, and then Rogan invited us on the show, and I was like, oh, I have to ignore every old school banker capitalist instinct and say, actually lean in the opposite way and say, hey, let me promote you, let me have you on, let's talk about this, because this is a new space, it's new media, and now everybody is involved. Not only do we not want to keep you from being involved, we want you to be involved.
Right.
And so that's a weird mentality, but it's one that really works well.
We often have to fight our instincts when it comes to this. Yeah, that's why we say capitalism is like ABC, always be closing, right? What we need to do, what everyone really needs to do is ABG, always be giving or always be generous. Because imagine you help somebody who's quote unquote competing with you. Imagine you help them a ton. You're probably not going to go out of business as a result. You're probably going to have the strongest ally in your industry as a result.
Yeah.
That's a win. It doesn't matter if they get something that you want in the short term. It just doesn't matter. And look, if they stab you in the back and screw you over, you learned a cheap lesson early on.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't happen that often. More likely you make a strong relationship that lasts for decades.
Other guests that come to mind that, change you?
Yeah, I really like, Robert Greene. I love Tom Bilyeu so far. Jocko was great. There's a lot of people that are really great for practicals. There's a lot of people that are really great for sort of mindset. Even guys as simple as, I shouldn't say guys as simple as, I think personalities that are able to convey things that are so simplistic in a lot of ways, but are hard to apply. I mean, look, Cal Fussman came on. We had a great conversation about curiosity and interviewing. We've had some great, I had Chase Hughes, who actually he's a behavior expert. Okay. He was here in London as well. He trains in nonverbal communication, persuasion, and influence. I mean, this is highly practical, super interesting. This is the intelligence, military type of stuff as well.
Okay.
And I had a great conversation with the former ambassador to Russia. I mean, I'm into that geopolitical stuff as well. Like some of these guys, man, they've seen some stuff.
Yeah, they've seen some stuff and heard some conversations, and they could blow your mind, right?
Yeah.
If they could only tell you everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, McFaul was a guy who was getting followed by FSB, former KGB agents. His kids were being followed, and he's in the room with, Putin and Obama, and apparently Obama turns to Putin and goes, "Stop fucking with McFaul." I mean, imagine being in, I don't know, it's just something about being in the proximity to this kind of power and still having it be real, and you having that front row seat in history is just something special about it.
I could see Obama saying that, actually.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just like that, actually. Talk to me about other leaders in the space. When you see, and I'm just throwing these names out there, Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, Mark Maron, three up there in this space. What do you see that those guys do or do differently? Do you get inspiration from them? Do you pick up things and say, okay, that's interesting, I'm gonna do that, or I'm not gonna do that? And am I missing names as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love what each of these guys does and creates. Maron's got a way of being so self-deprecating and getting stories out of people because they feel, I don't want to hypothesize, but I almost feel like they're just like, I can tell this guy anything because he's not judging me. We're in his garage,
Right.
And then you get a guy like Rogan who's like just sitting there smoking a J in front of you or something like that and passing it back and forth.
With Elon Musk. What did you think?
With Elon Musk.
What did you think of that show?
Honestly, that wasn't my favorite. I felt like it was a missed opportunity. The one thing that, as much of a Rogan fan as I am, the one thing that doesn't jibe well with my style is the lack of preparation. Not that he hasn't prepared his craft. He's definitely a master of that. But it's like, had he done a dozen or so hours. I mean, look, I'm a nerd. I'm a lawyer. I spend 10, 20 hours preparing for each interview that I do. Rogan doesn't spend really much time at all, which is a style choice. It's not him being lazy or anything. I get that. But had he really done a deep amount of research, I felt like he could have got a better interview. But who am I to say it's better? People love seeing Elon Musk suck down some indica or whatever and talk about how you wouldn't want to be him. There's gold there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good observation.
Yeah.
It's just, he's got a style that's, he's just being him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you would have approached it differently. I would approach it differently.
Yeah.
Also, I find alcohol in a show takes it in a weird way that somehow isn't as interesting.
Yeah.
Because they weren't just smoking weed. They had about 4 or 5 drinks at that point. And when you get into about an hour of that, sometimes the conversation devolves.
Yeah.
I actually never drank on a show, but...
Oh, really?
I think, I just feel like it sometimes can go...
Your producer gave me 3 mugs full of whiskey. What do you have in there? Coffee?
That's what the bumblebee is. Mm-hmm. So well
That's why
said.
I'm coughing, yeah.
I thought it was, though, a watershed moment for new media. The fact, because it just made me inspired that, wow, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company is on a live podcast, streaming, smoking weed, and talking about this crazy stuff. Like, it just made me so bullish on what we're doing that, Rogan could just show one little possibility of what could happen or will happen in the next 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely. And whenever I give even what might look like criticism on Rogan, I wait for my Twitter feed to be full of people be like, shut it, a-hole. Look, we love this stuff. I'm a fan. I like that stuff. I like him. I think what he's doing is important. This is not criticism. It's a stylistic choice. What he's doing for us, our space, this is crucial. He's Oprah right now. We don't have anything like that. I would rather be on Joe Rogan than any other sort of mainstream TV show that's out there. You want to go on Ellen? Fine, great. I'm proud of you. I would jump over that couch to land in front of Joe Rogan and have that conversation. And the fact that he's able to get the people that he's got on that show, it takes guys like you and I out of the, oh, you do a podcast? Oh, that's cool. What do you do full time though? What's your job? Right? It takes it out of there and goes, oh, okay, this is real. This is the new thing. This is what's real now in media. Oh, you thought 60 Minutes was real? Cool, let's see their weird fake takedown fluff piece on this. 60 Minutes might not be a great example because it's one of the last bastions of places where they give a crap about telling a real story. But if you look at most news programs, it's like, oh, we need 6-minute segments on something. How about the uptick in metal dog sales throughout the United States? Great, super interesting. He's a guy who says, oh, conventional wisdom says 7 minutes is people's attention span. Great, I'm going to do a 3-hour show. Oh, you shouldn't do this because it makes you look bad. Great, pass the J. Roll me another one, right? Yeah. Oh, you shouldn't swear. Tough shit. Oh, you can't do that on this program. This isn't going to be good. I'll make the rules now. Thanks. Yeah. Internet media is not real. Fine. 90 million downloads a month. Tell me what's not real. So that's important for us. They're paving the way for this. And I'd like to think that we're a part of that as well. You don't have to learn stuff from textbooks. You can learn from people that are doing it in the trenches. Not that school or something like that doesn't have value. But the fact is, you don't have to do clickbaity crap to get people to look at what you're doing. Whenever I get tempted, even remotely, to do something that's inauthentic or that would just get more views or have on the latest reality TV show BSer because I think that's going to make for a more popular episode, I just go, nope, you know what? Guys like Rogan, guys like Brian, they're not going to do that because it's easy or low-hanging fruit. They're going to do what they think is best for their viewers. And that raises the bar. Finally. Finally, something is raising the effing bar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I had Jordan Peterson on here, and the night before he was here, he was at the O2 Arena, and there were 7,000 people that bought a ticket to watch him debate Sam Harris about philosophy and religion and storytelling. And he said, Brian, I would have never sold those tickets if it wasn't for podcasting. And he said, people aren't as stupid as we thought they were.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, right. They appreciate a long-form, nuanced conversation. Yeah. And he said, I could have never sold those tickets without shows like Rogan, shows like ours that get people used to this form and then realize, wow, there's a fan base out there that wants to buy it. So it's a change,
Yeah.
man.
Let me tell you. When this Elon Musk thing happened and when Jordan Peterson stuff is going on, I've gotten more calls from agents in the last 12 months, just, entertainment people, literary, television, whatever, film, in the last 12 months than ever before. And then in the last 10, 11 years combined. And they don't say why, but the reason is because there's been a shift from, well, this guy needs to do this and these people are just sort of fake fringe internet whatevers. That has shifted to, wait a minute, this is where everybody's putting their attention. People are now looking to internet properties for the latest thing. The best-selling book in the last few years, at least in our sort of niche, Mark Manson, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's the reason. The reason he's gotten all this attention, he's also sort of paving the way, right? Because people before, if he'd said, hey, I want to do like this sort of counter self-help book, people would have been like, get out of here. Now it's like, well, wait a minute, this blogger guy can write this and just crush everyone else. He's not a personality that's been on TV. He didn't do all this other stuff before. He self-published a book on picking up chicks before that. And now he's got one of the best-selling books of the last few, millions of copies of that book, Subtle Art, have been sold. Mark Manson is crushing it. This stuff, there's a shift happening. It's gonna happen over the next 3-4 years as well, where guys like, Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, yourself, hopefully I'll be along for this, are going to create a shift change, a tidal shift, I should say, in the fact that people aren't as dumb as everybody thinks. You don't have to do these sort of, hell, even BuzzFeed went from making GIF article top 10 lists to being a real news agency. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see thank goodness, a backlash against catering to the lowest common denominator. Thank goodness, right? There's gotta be some intellectualism that survived.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm intellectual by any stretch, but thank goodness, I am thankful that people want to learn from smart people and want to become better. Because for a while there, I was worried that nobody cared anymore.
Just to finish out that list, Tim Ferriss. And by the way, you introduced me to Tim Ferriss. You got him on the show, and it was one of our big early shows. And you did it, so you don't even remember because you were just networking and adding value.
That's great.
I always tell that story to all my students in my broadcast course because I say, look, I did, this all happened because of my weak ties. And this guy, Jordan, hooked me up and got me with Tim, and then I ended up tweeting Tim with his assistant's first name, and then we made it happen. But thoughts on Ferriss? Because he came late to that space and then just, crushed the space.
Yeah, of course. I didn't mean to, there was no intent in leaving him out at all. Yeah, loved him, love his content, late to the space, really intense at everything he does and always crushes it. So it's no surprise that he's done so well with the podcast. He's also been one that's shown, hey, you want to do something your way, you can do it your way. Everything that he's done in the space, I'm going to make my shows longer, I'm going to talk about this type of thing, I'm going to do it in this way, has shown other people that this is important. Anytime anybody with any level of influence gets into the podcasting space, it is always welcome. People often go, ooh, are you worried about the competition? No, this is also like a muscle, right, instead of a pie. Yeah, there's going to be people who go, I listen to less of London Real or Jordan Harbinger now because I have to balance between Tom Bilyeu, Tim Ferriss, and Rogan. That's fine. Because for every person that's listening for one less episode per month, is still hopefully listening to us, there are thousands of people who never for 1 second would have thought to listen to a podcast or watch stuff on YouTube that are now in that space because they were brought in by those other people. So the more the merrier. And when people say, oh, but what about all these noobs coming in because the bar is so low for content creation? I like them too, because they come in, they create something, they get their family and friends to all listen, and then they give up after 10 episodes. But those people still go, oh, there's a whole world of content out there. Yeah. And they find us as a result. So I welcome every player in the space. The only time you should worry, and this goes for every industry, the only time you should worry about competition coming into the space is when you have not done anything to become the best in class. If you're not honing your craft, if you're not working hard to make sure that your content is sticky and the best for everyone, then if you're not doing that stuff, then you should worry because somebody else who's new can come in, just like the networking, they're coasting. If you're coasting, someone's gonna come and jump you. Otherwise, if you're working your ass off, you've got that work ethic, you're building your skill set, and you've got that even a shred of talent whatsoever, you will be fine. You will always have an audience.
Yeah. Tell me about you. What are some of your daily practices that make you who you are, allow you to stay on top of the competition? You obviously work a lot.
Yeah, workaholic.
Well, yeah, maybe. But like, what are some of the things that you do every day just to make sure you
every day I make sure that I'm focused on relationships. So I do that texting, scroll to the bottom thing. I do that every single day.
Starting tomorrow.
Do that. Start tomorrow. Yeah. I do that every single day. I make sure that every new person that I meet goes into my Contactually software, which is like, I think it's like a real estate agent CRM.
Okay.
And what it does is it says like, oh, you haven't talked to Brian Rose for 90 days. You should send him an email. And it reminds me of all these people. I have thousands of people in there. I keep in touch with all of them. I prioritize relationships. If I don't have my relationship stuff done for the day, I don't go into my email inbox and check for new stuff. I don't go on social media. I also make sure that I'm learning every day. I'm always reading a book, constantly. I'm always working on a skill set. I have coaches for every element of my business. So I have people who are teaching me marketing stuff. I have people who are teaching me how to become better on camera. I'm sure rule number one is stop sniffling all the damn time. I have people that are teaching me how to be a better reader so that I can go through and prep better. I have journalists teaching me how to be a better interviewer. I have coaches for everything. I'm always trying to work hard and level up. I even have people teaching me how to dress better, because if you look at pictures of me if you look at our old London reel, I mean, it is just sad.
Pretty shocking.
It is just sad.
Yeah, it's
wearing like an ill-fitting t-shirt and a baseball cap. It's just weak.
And you pay for the best, and you just getting mentored all the time.
All the time.
Pay for coaching.
Yeah, wow. All the time. And I never don't have time. I never lean on the excuse that there's no time, you know?
Because you could do that.
You could. I am busy, but I'm busy getting better, not treading water. If you think you're spending all your time just treading water, staying at the same level, you're doing something wrong. It's better to let some things lapse for a while you work on other skills. Not your health or your level of fitness or something like that, but let's say that you can't do as much. Maybe even you need to let your relationship stuff, you can only do a little bit of it. You don't have time to do all of it. Pick some important relationships and nurture those. But in the meantime, you're getting better at some other craft. Fine. You can never make up for lost time, though, when it comes to relationships. So you can never let that stuff go fully. Same with health and fitness. But if you have to work on something from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. after you put your baby to bed or something like that, you have to constantly be getting better. And there's some cliche in here about if you're not learning, you're dying, whatever. It's so true. You have to be working on something. And anybody who thinks they can do it themselves, this is one common fallacy I see is people think, well, I don't have time to do it, or I can't afford a mentor or a coach. It takes you a lot longer to learn something yourself and make all those mistakes and learn it wrong and spend years backing up and unlearning. It is cheaper over the long run to hire the right person to show you how to do it well early. And I learned that lesson early on. That's why now I'm like, oh, I want to get in shape, hire a trainer. Oh, you want to work on your interview skills? Don't just fake your way through conversations like I did for 10 years. Hire people to teach you how to do this. We're starting to bring a lot of our interviews to film. I'm not just like, oh, I'm going to pick up. I made the mistake of buying 3 GoPros and aiming them crookedly at people. It's not how you do this. Hire people who know what they're doing, have them teach you, and forever be a student. Anybody who thinks that they're too old to learn new tricks is just making the excuse because they don't want to put themselves in there. And I really had a wake-up call when I had to start from scratch in 2018. That was like Zen beginner's mind, starting over, learn everything new again. While I'm starting over, I had to be of the mind that I didn't know everything again, and it was one of the best things that ever could have happened to me, 2020 hindsight.
If I was asked like 5 of your best friends and maybe some of the team you brought with you, and I said, what's Jordan's superpower besides his networking?
Yeah.
What would they say it is that allows you to get all this done? Because you're publishing, what, 2 episodes a week?
3.
3?
Yeah.
Jesus. That's a lot. So
Yeah.
3 times more than we do.
Wow.
And you obviously a lot of other things going on in the background, consulting and other pieces of audio as well. What would they say it is?
It's discipline. You know, I'm studying Mandarin Chinese. I study every day. I read every day. I work out or do something physical pretty much every day. That is in addition to getting all the work done. I'm that guy who will like wake up and do Chinese lessons for 5 years. I will do that. And my wife always goes, I can't believe you're doing this. Earlier before the interview, I had to take out those Candid Co. invisible aligners. Yeah. And my wife goes, you're 38. I can't believe you're doing this. You know, you wear your mouth guard every night. You know, I'm just that guy, but I never was when I was a kid. I developed that discipline over time. My superpower has been developing that discipline, but actually sticking with it. Discipline only counts when you need it. If you're that guy who wakes up and like goes to work and goes to the gym, that's great. But if you're that guy or gal who can do that even when you're sick and you don't feel like it and it's raining or snowing outside, that's when discipline counts. It really doesn't matter when it's easy. It matters when things are hard.
Yeah, build the well before you need it.
Yeah.
And as Jocko would say, discipline equals freedom.
That's right.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, it does. What was the best day of your life and the worst day?
The worst day was recently was having to start over, finding out that deal we negotiated wasn't going to work. And it wasn't that I was sad, I was mostly just uncertain. But the best day recently, I don't know if it was one single day. It was, if I have to narrow it to the day, Apple picked us as best of 2018. That was, in recent memory, one of the best days because it was validation of what had been culminating all along, which is not only can we start from scratch and do it all over again, we can be better than we ever were in record time and do it while having retained the same team that was working before, having more freedom and having more fun than we ever had. I wouldn't say it was the day, but if I know the idea here is to pick one event, so that would be it. But
yeah, you're smiling, so I can tell.
looking forward. I'm looking forward to the day that my soon-to-be child is born, and because I live for passing wisdom on to other people, and of course, having the chance to mold a child into what their potential allows them to be is going to be amazing. You know, my problem as a father is going to be not being like that helicopter parent who's like, you gotta do all this stuff. That's my kid. If they resent me for anything, it's gonna be like making them do too much stuff. So I'm gonna have to pay attention to that.
The good news is they can listen to your shows long after you're gone.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
They can always have a version of Dad online.
Yeah.
You know, in case they don't want to talk to you for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's right. The trick for me is gonna be like resisting saying, you have to watch this 11 years worth of stuff. You know, because otherwise they'll never watch it when I'm gone. They'll be like, nah, he punished us by making him watch the Jordan Harbinger show. We're not doing it anymore.
There will be some rejection of that.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
What scares you?
You know, what's scary for me is waking up one day and thinking, oh, I should have done more earlier. And I'm always like that. Even now, I'm like, why did I go to law school? I should have done different things. I should have gone to journalism school, or like, why didn't I do this before? Why didn't I do this other thing before? It's waking up and having a realization that I didn't give something my all. And I can't figure out what that would be, but I'm always on the lookout for that weakness. But the ironic part of always looking for the weakness is then being tempted to stretch your focus to doing things that don't matter. I'll tell you, I went down the Instagram rabbit hole a while ago, and it took me a while, and I was stressing out my wife, and I was stressing out my team, because I was like, oh, I gotta build that up now. I can't believe we slept on this. And then I realized, I don't care. It's a drain for me as a creator to worry about that. And I get distracted by those things. So I have to balance focusing on what matters, you know, doing the Jordan Harbinger show, with not neglecting something and regretting having not done it. So I'm worried, like waking up in 30 years and being like, oh man, I have a missed opportunity here. And what scares me is like maybe not being able to have kids or something like that. A lot of my friends are having bad luck with that. It's scary. You know, they're going through round 8 of IVF, and it's like, oh my God, you know. That stuff freaks me out.
Yeah.
Getting older is scaring me. I didn't want to make this personal or about you, man. You know, like I was getting older.
How old are you?
Sucks.
30.
38.
38. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't ask how old you are.
I'm 47.
47?
But as Dan Pena says, you're all kids. That's what he says. Because if you think about it from a 73-year-old man's perspective, we are all kids.
Yeah.
And I always tell like my students, people, I'm always like, okay, make a phone call to the you that's 10 years older, so 47-year-old Jordan, and tell him you're too old to do shit. And he'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I would kill to be 37 and have all this possibility, or 38 or whatever.
It's true, right? I mean, think about where you were 10 years ago, and then think about where you're going to be at age 57, which actually isn't that old at all.
No.
And it's like, you've done, let's say we've been around, let's say we've both been in the game like a similar amount of time, right? 11, 12 years. I built everything that I have now in 12 years. 12 years from now, it's not going to be the same, it's not the same rate. I rebuilt the Jordan Harbinger show in 1 year, what I did in the past 11 years before that, except larger. So if that's the current rate of growth, even if it slows down by 50%, I'm still at this, I can't even imagine where I'll be in 3 years, let alone 10 more.
Yeah.
So you're right, but there's still this part of me that's like, you're gonna die and it's gonna be really soon and you gotta do it all right now. And living that way has been horrible. Like I wouldn't say living that way has been horrible. Worrying about not accomplishing what my potential might be, that's horrible and scary. But the reality is that that's unlikely to happen. It doesn't mean my fears are rational. It's just that's what scares me.
What would we be surprised to learn about Jordan? What's something you do? I mean, besides that, you spend a lot of time, you know, and I'm quoting you, with your wife and your cat at home, and build this amazing network and this podcast, but you're not the guy that's necessarily in all the Hollywood parties hanging out.
No.
What else would we be surprised to learn?
I've been to North Korea 4 times. Yeah.
You used to run tours there.
I used to run tours to North Korea. Yeah. I've seen Kim Jong-un give a speech and met, you know, North Korean intelligence agents and stuff like that, and that's a fascinating place. It's a little touch and go right now. I don't know if I would go back anytime soon, but that's a fascinating place.
Yeah.
I don't talk about that a ton. It's not a secret at all. It's just my audience is probably sick of hearing about it, and most people don't ask me about it.
And what keeps you awake at night?
Ooh, man. I think it goes back to the loss of, you know what keeps me awake at night? You know what worries me, again, irrationally, is am I really doing everything that I can, or am I just really telling myself that I am? Because you see these guys working 24/7 and they're miserable, but there's a part of me that wants to do that and says, well, you're not really giving it your all if you don't. But are you really living life if you do that? And my experience of looking at other people who do that says you have to have a balance where you focus on family or you'll regret it. But there's another part of me that's like, no, I want to like move to London and start a totally different life with my wife, of course, and bring my cats over. But I don't want, like, maybe I don't want to, on one hand, I don't want to start a family. I want to have freedom and work 24/7. And on the other hand, I want to retire and just raise kids. But you don't have that. So what keeps me awake at night is, am I doing the balance right?
Right, yeah.
And the unfortunate situation, the fortunate reality is you can't know.
I heard someone say the other day that when I think it was Da Vinci was painting the Sistine Chapel, this work of art that everyone is in awe at when you go to the Vatican, he hated every minute of it. Paint was in his beard and his hair, and he fucking hated it, and yet created something that we think is epic, and we probably would never think that. And when we look at these great creations of art, we always think, oh, that guy was macking it and loving his life. Maybe it requires some pain to build these great things. You know, Jordan Peterson always says, stop focusing on being happy. Just focus on, doing your part, or doing something better for the greater good, and don't get caught up in this whole happiness thing. But then again, it's this whole balance. And if you become a dad, it becomes really relevant, you know?
Yeah, it is. And look, I'm not worried about happiness. I agree with Jordan Peterson on people who, in fact, look, I don't know if he said this. I think this is what he's saying. People who focus on happiness, it's like you're really chasing the dragon's tail. It's elusive because you're trying to get something that happens when when you create this around you in other ways. It's the happiness thing. Don't even. That's up there with follow your passion.
Okay.
It is like be happy or worry about optimize for happiness, that kind of thing. I worry a lot less about being happy. If there's one thing I realized about myself in the past year of starting over, it's that what makes me happy in this weird, perverse way is being tested and challenging and working really hard. That is what makes me happy. And that's one thing that freaks my wife out about having kids, is she's like, are you gonna be happy raising a kid? Because you like to torture yourself with work. And I think I will. What keeps me awake at night is, am I going to turn into that kind of dad that the kid resents because I'm like, no, you are my new project now. And they're like, no, I just want to be a normal human. And I'm like, no, you can't. You got to be my creation. And I've got to put all my insecurities on what I haven't accomplished into you and make you hate me. Like that's what worries me, right? Like, am I going to be that kind of parent? And I hope not.
Well, also the kids bring torture as well. So get ready to lock into that.
That's true.
So I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old now, and it's next level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a test in itself. Getting through some of these years, and it's massively rewarding.
I bet.
They'll push you, unlike even a new business will push you.
Yeah.
And your relationship and everything. So I think you'll thrive on that test.
I hope so. That does scare me a little bit too. Now that you asked me what scares you, I've got a freaking laundry list of stuff. Now, speaking of staying up all night, man, parents and parenting, you see when people do it wrong, and you see the consequences of people who do it wrong. And I think we all have constructive criticism we could give our own parents. So I guess I just worry about what mistakes am I going to make that I don't see,
Yeah. Once you have kids, all of the criticism you used to have of your parents melts away, because you're like, oh wow, they were just maintaining. They were just
treading water,
living their life and raising me. And lucky I didn't die. You start to be a lot more forgiving and understanding of what it's like to juggle those worlds. So good luck with that. And also, it's funny. I spent 45 years of my life trying not to have babies. And then once it was time to have babies, I thought it would take me, a week. But I thought I'd be like, no problem. But it's a difficult.
You're like, I take process. B12, I'm good.
I mean, I just thought it would be no brainer, but it was hard and difficult, and that can be a whole process too. So for anybody out there that's in it, I would just say keep going. Talk to the best people out there. Stay positive, because
don't keep your cell phone in your pocket or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that too.
Yeah. Jordan, I don't even know if that's a real thing.
I don't think it is, but I don't know.
Unlikely.
I always finish the show with a few basic questions. I'm going to hit you. I probably asked you last time in Venice at the hotel. I remember that day like it was yesterday for some reason, just having you there with the webcams and everything. If you could pick up the phone and ring up the 20-year-old Jordan, who's still at college, right? Still you're in Michigan, right? For undergrad?
Yeah, I was in Michigan undergrad, Michigan law. Yeah, that's right.
And if you could call him now and give that young man advice, I mean, bam, you've really got some amazing knowledge. What would you tell him?
These success secrets are only available on the London Real Academy. Become a member and get access to live shows, exclusive courses, my webinars, bonus content, meetups, live events, an amazing community, and much, much more. Now back to the rest of the show.
What I really needed to do was spend more time figuring out what the hell I wanted. When you hear people say, I need to find myself, I roll my eyes because but I get it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us, we go down that beaten path. And hell, you and I are the kings of the beaten path. We took finance jobs, for God's sake. That's the beaten path times 100. That was a waste of time. Yes, I found out what I didn't want to do, so it had its place in my story. I think I'd be 10 years younger or 7 years younger, and I would have been hopefully where I am now, if not further along, if I just spent more time listening to myself. Now, granted, most people who are 20 should not listen to themselves, but if they get a call from a 38-year-old version of themselves and they say that, then you should listen.
Right, that's the advice. Listen to your 38-year-old
Right, but don't listen to yourself now. Yourself now, you're probably an idiot like I was at age 20, but if 38-year-old you calls and says something, you can listen to that instead.
You're probably in a simulation, so then call Elon Musk.
Yeah, then
go to Netflix.
Right, Elon, you were right. I am on the phone with my 38-year-old self. Also, nothing matters because I'm a computer program.
Yeah. On that same note, best advice you ever received, and it could have been from a guest, someone in law, I don't know, over the years, something that really stuck with you?
Yeah, the best advice that I ever received, it goes back to that same stuff I've been saying during the show, which is, and dig the well before you're thirsty is probably the most elegant way to put it. I wish I'd listened to that advice earlier. It's not just dig the well before you're thirsty. It's that the people you meet are going to be the most important thing in your life. And that goes for your family, that goes for your friends who you have right now. It doesn't matter if they're doing something you think is cool or if they're go-getters. Yeah, you want to be surrounded by great people. Oh, that's another bit of advice I wish I'd listened to. You really are the average of the 5 people or 10 people that you're surrounded by. We all think that we can withstand influence. We can't. You think, oh, I only hang out with these guys because they live near me, but they're cool. We just play video games. They're not like my real influences. What you're doing is who you are. If you're playing Xbox on Friday to blow off steam, but then that same guy crashes on your couch and then you order some pizza and then the next day you sleep in and then you crack a beer and you go out for breakfast, that's fine once every couple months, but if that's what you're doing all the time, that's who you are even if you don't want to believe it. And I spent a lot of years in denial. Oh, I can go out drinking 4 nights a week. It's not really who I am. I'm just doing this because that's what my friends like doing. That was you, man. That's who you are. That's where your time and energy are going. Man, I wasted so much time doing that shit.
So choose who you surround yourself with really wisely.
Curate that. Yeah. Curate and cultivate that. Because when you cultivate who's around you, you're cultivating who you are. You don't think so. You think those are just your friends or who you're killing time with. You think it's for fun. You are whittling yourself. You are sculpting yourself out of those people. You just don't think about it that way, but that's what's happening.
Right, which is why your advice earlier to hang out with that CEO for 5 years, it's just a way of curating that thing around you.
It is,
and turning yourself into something.
It is.
Last part, and I asked this earlier, but I'll ask it again, to that 20-year-old that's watching us, and assume it could have been one of us when we were 20, advice to give to them right now, when they're looking out in this world, don't know what to do with their lives, they're flipping through Instagram, which is now something they think is probably real, right? Seeing the inspirational memes and the this and that. Advice to them about what they should really do with their lives.
You won't know what you want to do at that age because you probably aren't going to know what you want to do even in 10 years. Give yourself permission to evolve. What's that phrase? The perfect is the enemy of the good, right? There are so many people that don't start things because they don't want to commit to something if they're not sure. And the best thing you can do at age 20, 25, even 30, get experience that makes you better in general. Don't worry about, if I start that, then I'm in this career, but what I really want to do is this. Don't worry about that. Don't worry if you want to be in film, but the only job you can get is the assistant to the CEO of the energy company. That experience is what's going to bring you to the next level. Don't worry about you're baking bricks and stacking them. You're building skills and you're skill stacking. Don't worry about getting into the perfect job. Don't worry if you're on the right path for that. You've got to work your way up from the mailroom. Just worry about building discrete sets of skills that you can put together. That's what you should be doing during your 20s. I spent so much time not knowing what I'm gonna do, so I might just loaf around over here, I might wander around over there. That was okay, but if I'd been more deliberate in just really building up skills, man, I would have saved myself a lot of time and I would have worried a lot less about I'm not doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing if you're getting better all the time. And I wish I had known that a long time ago.
It's great advice, and that Instagram advice earlier is pretty goddamn precious. And you nailed it, because I've been talking about it a lot. It's been coming up on shows, and I've been saying to my students, that's the crack cocaine. You really got to watch it. But now I understand kind of why, because it's selling you this weird dream that's not real, and yet you're kind of in the sales process dream, and so you can't really know that you're in this little mini simulation that is Instagram. And
you're in the sales funnel of social media companies and the people who are influencers or whatever. You're in their freaking sales funnel. If you believe that if I just do this and this and this and I can be like them, you are, congratulations, you are being sold the dream. And it's ridiculous. you shouldn't want to be like someone else. You should be building skills and building abilities so that you can create something that actually matters. And what actually matters is not 300,000 Instagram followers. Let me tell you, I got that right now. Hasn't changed my life at all. Not interesting in the least. The ego validation was cool for like 1 second, and then I was like, oh, I never cared about this. I thought I cared, and I just don't.
Funny how that happens.
Funny how that happens, yeah.
Jordan, I feel like I've met you for the first time. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people feel like they've met you for the first time on this show. And part of the problem with us being hosts is, especially ones that want to add value and don't just maybe want to build a personal brand by yelling a lot, is that we're always like, look at this person, look at this person, look at this person. And for my first couple years, like, I don't think I said more than a few sentences on my show. But it also means that people don't really know who you are. They see your work, they kind of get a feel. And I've watched your Google Talks and some other things, but I never really saw you. But like, it's really cool to see you and see how opinionated you are. And I feel like you've been kind of had a rebirth this last year too, with everything that's happening. So thanks for coming out and coming out strong and just telling us who you are. I really appreciate it. And just massive congratulations to Jordan Harbinger's show. I mean, I saw this coming and I knew you pulled the trigger on it. But to be where you are now, I was just like, wow, I really thought this would be years, you know? And so it's amazing to know, and now you're more on brand and you're happier. And now in hindsight, it makes sense. Yeah. But still, you know, it's massive. And I do have that recurring dream sometimes, like I wake up and everything's been deleted. But, you know, it doesn't, it's a nightmare, not a dream. It's a nightmare. But the other day I thought of it and I thought, well, okay, well, what would you do? And how would you grow? And how would it be different? And you know, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? And that kind of Chinese proverb I always think about. So, look, thanks for doing what you do. You put out amazing value-added content. You got fans for a reason. You're always pushing it, and I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad we connected 6 years ago. You always feel like a friend. We are friends. We are friends. Even though like we met once, I don't know what it is, but we met before. We've met at Mastermind Talks, and we've hung out a couple times in LA. Thanks for remembering. Yeah, I guess I forgot. But like, thanks for remembering. But whenever I get a message from you, it's like I always want to help. I always want to help you for some reason. So, well, likewise, man. Look, I'm a fan. I like what you do. This is a service as much as it is something that rewards us. I know firsthand it's something that every ounce of what we get from it, we're giving times 100,000 or times 1,000,000 to everybody that's listening and watching. Yeah. So thank you for what you do as well. It's my pleasure, man. I think we're really causing a mass scale transformation in like the way people think, and I think 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back and be like, wow, maybe we did change some global conversations. Yeah, hopefully. Here and there. So that's the plan. Anyways, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you. I look forward to what you're building, and let's hook up again next time you're in London. You know it. All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The critics who always speak behind my back, maybe I want to hear them remind me, he's back, the great pretender. I hope this time he gets hurt. I love these guys. They give me fuel. If you want to reach your objective, you want to achieve it, you're going to have to be obsessive. You're going to have to be obsessed. Feel what you do. Feel it. If you're not feeling it, it doesn't matter.
It's Chris Eubank Jr. How do you explain his prowess in the ring?
Junior has that obsession, that genius, that magic. Genius is obsession, but it's in one area.
You studied the sweet science for so much of your life. How do you walk away from it? Do you miss it?
You can't walk away from it. I am it. And even when I dance, really I'm boxing. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, the one who strives valiantly.
What was the worst day of your life, and how has it shaped you as a human being?
When I fought Nigel Benn, I stood like this. It was to mask this. The risk must be taken. That's why you are London Reelers. That's why we're here. We're tired of sitting still. watching it happening for others. Let's do it.